Hello. I am Azul Kirby. I don't know, the closest you could probably get to Fortune Street Professional. Not that I do it for a living, but I have played so much Fortune Street. Um, I have played every single officially released board from every Fortune Street game, except two, and I'll get to those later. And you know what? I thought I want to make a ranking video. I've had a tier list that I use for a while to help figure out which boards to play, put them all on a wheel and spin with them weighted. I'm like, why not put my rankings? I want to make a video about it where I can explain my thoughts on every board, because I love Fortune Street. It's so fun. It's so good. It's like, what if Monopoly had, like, actually a high skill ceiling? What if you could actually move? What if you could steal properties? What if the game didn't last a billion years? That's Fortune Street. I love it. So, we're gonna be talking about that today, and from every game. There are a lot of Fortune Street games. Those tabs one on, but there's a lot of Fortune Street games that have been released. A bunch of them. I should have counted them, but there's a bunch. From like the NES up until 2017, I believe was the most recent game for the PS4. So this is all of them. I've made this tier list. Before we start, one thing to mention is how to play Fortune Street, because how do you play all these versions? Do you have to import the games? No, you can pretty much play most games on your PC if you're willing to emulate, and you have ROMs you've gotten yourself from your own imported versions. But you know, you can play most of these on PC. First thing is you want to play with friends, which all of these I've played with friends. I've not really played single player at all. Parsec is my highest recommendation. It is an app you can download on your computer that lets other people join your computer remotely, and it accepts their controller inputs or keyboard inputs. And no matter what emulator you're using, you can use Parsec to have other friends connect to you and play. That's how I always play. So like you could do stuff like NetPlay on Dolphin, but this works with everything, no matter what, and it's easy to set up. If you have a friend who's never used Parsec before, it's extremely easy to set them up and get to playing as soon as possible. It's really good. As well, if you're playing it, I recommend 4 versions to have. Itadaki Street 3 for the PS2, Itadaki Street Special also for the PS2, Portable for the PSP, and the Wii version. With those, you can play pretty much every board. 3 has every single board that came in that game beforehand. Special and Portable have their own Yugi games, boards, and Wii is particularly good because everybody has ported stuff to Wii, and I'll get to that. So, and if you want a bit of a crash course on how to play it, or how to do it easily, I have myself written a guide to play Itadaki Street 3 in English. It is on Bistro Juror Sub's website. That is my fan sub site. I usually use to sub Tokusatsu, but I also made this guide. It goes through everything with little options like what each thing means with the original and pictures next to it. It makes the game pretty fluid to just play pretty easily. I recommend that. As well, for Special and Portable, they only release in Japan, just like 3, but they have full translation patches. Well, not full. All the gameplay stuff is translated. Not all the dialogue is translated, though I know that's currently in progress for Special. But you don't really need that to play the game, and that's not what makes Fortune Street fun, in my opinion. Both Portable and Special have translation patches you can find. Highly recommend. And then finally with Wii, oh my god, the modding scene for Wii is huge. Like, you can play, like, every board. Like, you can play so many. This pack, particularly, Custom Street World Tour, has basically every map that's ever been modded into the Wii version. And that also includes pretty much every official board that is portable. There's some that aren't portable due to specific mechanics or too many spaces or stuff, but a lot of stuff. But highly recommended. Pretty much every official board that can be ported has been ported to the... Actually, no, literally everyone that can be ported has been ported. They're all playable. I would recommend, if it's one of the main boards in 3, or it was a board that's not in Wii originally, but's in Special or Portable, I'd recommend using those versions before. But if not, World Tour is amazing. Custom Street World Tour is everything. I, in fact, ported a bunch of these boards to this version as well. Especially a bunch of the mobile games, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, if you want to play, these are the 4 games you should be using to play all the boards. It's fun. Good stuff. So, and also, one brief thing before we really get started is also my own experience. I mostly play 2 or 3 player most of the time. I have 2 friends I played with a lot. So my experience is affected by that. I also play with vacants on, usually so that they're around 20-25% of the board. In Wii, we use few, and in the other versions, we use vacants, basically it's 1 per district, plus any of them that are set in by stone. We like that, and we have a few house rules. In particular, we can't build 3-star shops if you have stocks in a district, as a way to nerf them, but still make them a viable option. Anyway, let's get into the list. So I have these all listed in order of the game they first appeared in. They're pretty random within each one. So let's start with Eden Island. Eden Island, it's a map. It's 3 players, pretty unique, and you can only max roll 5, but it's also a 3-district board. Like, it's fine. Probably C. C to me is like the fine boards. They're fine. I'll play them. I'd rather get most of the boards above them, but, you know, like, it's fine. Did I have that here? I don't remember where I have this ranked. I have a list that I'm using to refer to. Oh, I have it in D. Yeah, that's right. This map is boring. Yeah, I was like looking up, like, it's not my C tier, so yeah, this map's boring. Like, if you're gonna play a short game, don't play Eden Island. Play one of the other boards like Trodain Castle or Alexandria. Just play one of those. Don't play Eden Island. Don't play the NES version. This one's only in the NES version, also, by the way. Like, all the other ones, you can play in the other versions. It's technically in Wii ported, but you shouldn't play it because it's a 4-player game in Wii, and the only way to play in 3 players is the NES version. Don't play this board. D for me is not awful, but I really don't want to play these boards. Just, I don't want to. Maharashtra Archipelago, I think. C. It's just a basic beginner board. Weirdly, it's default 15k instead of default 10k. Play this 10k. This is a 10k board. It's kind of weird because one of them has like 5 property. Yeah, the bottom left has like 5 properties in that district. Kind of awkward. I don't know. It's standard. There's so many better types of this type of board, like 10k boards with 5 districts. You could go better with like any other one of them. It's just kind of awkward, and it shows that this was from the NES because it's just kind of weird. The Americas. This is B. Another one originally from the NES version. Continental America is what I've translated in my Doctor 3 translation guide. It's fine. It's like Lake Mountain from 2, but it's built to be 20k with like islands and bigger spaces on like a bigger mainland and an island. An island with like I think 8 properties or 7. I think it's 7 properties on the island. Kind of interesting. I mean, I'd basically rank it the same. I'll get to Lake Mountain then, but it's fine. It's kind of interesting that you can choose to take the faster route. If you haven't played it, you can either go through bank or you can take little shortcuts to go from the top half to the bottom half of the board. But if you go through those, you have to keep going around. You can't approach bank differently. Like if you approach bank, you have to approach bank. Interesting design. It's fine. It's a fine board. I don't have much to say about it. And the classic. I don't remember what its original name is. It's like Eastern it's Eastern Hemisphere, I believe, or just Hemisphere in some games. Or, as a lot of people you probably know, it's Peach's Castle in Wii, which is all I know it as. Peach's Castle is a classic. Peach's Castle is the classic. Everybody loves Peach's Castle. It's from the first game. It feels like the entire game system was made for this board. Like, we made Itadaki Street for this board specifically, and the other boards are just kind of extras. And it lives up to it. It is so fun. It's dynamic. It's fun. 4 different areas on each side with different suits. Or you can also go through bank, but you have to force through the other corner. So it makes going through bank and doing bank loops, which is the thing I'm going to talk about a lot on these boards, is doing bank loops. Maybe some players find it overpowered to do bank loops on every board. I don't quite think that. I think, however, game boards that are balanced around bank loops are very good. Peach's Castle is one of those, because in order to make bank loops, you basically have to go from one side to the other back and forth, and you can't just loop the same section over and over again. You have to go to different areas in order to do your bank loops, unless you want longer bank loops by doing half the board at once, but yeah, it's fun and dynamic. It always leads to amazing games. Like, every game on Peach's Castle is amazing. If you've played this, you should know Peach's Castle kicks ass. It's so good. Space Nebula. I originally thought this would be fundamentally unplayable, and we will get to that fundamentally unplayable tier eventually. But it's actually not. It's fine. It's a fine board. Space Nebula is weird. You can only play, if you're playing on the versions I said, it's only on 3. Because its mechanics are weird. When you're not on the outside ring of the board, you're forced in a direction. And when you are on the outside ring, you may choose to go into the ring at the start of your turn, but only at the start of your turn. Otherwise, you have to keep going the direction around the ring you're already going, on the outside. So it's like you walk around. It's kind of awkward because you have to, like, be lined up with the bank at the start of your turn to go to bank. Or hit... There's also a few warps that also warp you to bank on the board as well. I thought this map would be trash. I was dreading when I first played it, but it ended up... It was kind of fun. It wasn't that, like, hard to deal with. It's still, like, weird and awkward, and you need to be, like, ready to play it, but... It's fine. I'd definitely play it again. I like this board decently well, yeah. It's less broken than you'd think it is. Like, you can still kind of play it. Casino Town. Man, I don't like Casino Town that much. It's fine. It's playable. It's kind of weird. So Casino Town, you basically can only go downwards. You cannot go upwards ever. And it's a looping board, so it loops vertically and it also loops horizontally. It's a board with wraparound. So, kind of interesting of a layout. Like, it's very interesting, but it's not very fun. It's a type of board that has, like, what I would call a double board effect, where essentially there are 2 boards. Because if you're making your promotion loop, you will only hit half of the properties that aren't on, like, the intersection paths. You're only going to hit half the properties if you're only taking promotion. And it's awkward to switch to the other one. Like, switching to the other one just, like, completely screws up your promotion loop. It makes it just weird and awkward. Not really that fun. There's 4 casinos, which is a choice. I mean, of course, it's Casino Town, but it slows down the game a bit. It's easy to avoid properties by just not going on the loop that has the properties. It also makes the ones around bank too powerful because, like, this is a problem with some boards that have, a bank loop that just means you don't have to go to certain parts of the board. So on this image, the left and right ones, you just don't have to go to if you're doing bank loops, which you should be doing in, like, the late game. In mid to late game, like, you should be doing that, so it just completely renders them, like, irrelevant other than for investment. So, you know, I don't like boards to do that either. At the very least, that makes them less interesting than they otherwise could have been. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about Casino Town. I could see other people liking it more than I do, potentially, but I know my friend I played it with liked it fine enough. I don't like this board. This could honestly go to D for me, but I'm keeping it there for now. Cloverland! Cloverland's a classic. And by the way, we're into the, with Casino Town, we're into the Itadaki Street 2 boards. The ones that started in the SNES version. You can play all these in 3. But I'd recommend playing pretty much all of them in Wii and Comes to World Tour, unless I say otherwise, because Wii is better to play than 3, unless it's a board specific to 3, in which case I would recommend 3. Cloverland, Cloverland type, solid board. I feel this is a bit of a classic too. It's something of a classic. They've made 3 other boards based on this concept. It's fun. There's a lot of boards in the game that have, like, compulsory bank visits where you have to visit the bank usually once per promotion loop. But this one makes you do it 3 times. Isn't that interesting? And each loop is pretty big. It makes for fun gameplay, so you do have to think about where you're doing. Like, once you get to, like, mid-late game, you could just avoid one of the loops, but you can't avoid 2 of them. You have to go to at least 2 of the 3 loops if you're making bank loops near the end of the game, if you stopped caring about promotion. And that's interesting. It's a lot of openness, because, like, you have to, or rather, it's a lot of linear paths. Like, you have to take each loop in, on each side, so you have to, like, you have to commit. You have to commit to a loop, which makes making some choices really suspenseful. Like, ugh, I don't want to go this way, but I kind of have to, and you just kind of dread getting to the property. And I always think that's kind of fun. I feel like rarely that's super broken, unless, like, the entire board just, like, limits you from making any choices ever. Like, you make the choice to go and take that risk, versus other worse boards where you don't have the choice. I don't know. Stuff like that's usually interesting. One thing you'll probably see through my list is I don't think more options makes a board better. I think limits can make boards really good. For example, like I said, Peach's Castle, letting you go to any side, or not letting you go anywhere from the bank. The bank being a fake intersection is great. That makes that board a lot better. And same things here. These being long pathways on each clover leaf, good. I probably like it more, like, I like it a bit more than... The biggest comparison is obviously Delfino Plaza in the Wii version. I like it more, but it being bigger. I don't know. Not sure why, but I like that. I don't know. It's fun. Dream World. Dream World. It's interesting, if you can't tell from the design, that middle circle is an island. It is an island that you have to get to from the... There's 4 warps around the board that can each warp you into the island. And, actually, no, there's 2 warps. There's 2 warps that bring you to the inside, but 4 warps to take you out. And, essentially, when you're in that middle circle, you cannot escape unless you get warped back out. And they share the little corner spaces in common, which are all vacant. And it's fine. It's a 4-quadrant board, kind of like Peach's Castle. With an island. With a weird island. It's fine. I might have ranked this higher, but the island is... it's not a good island. There's some people who think islands are, like, all bad. I'm not one of those people. I think islands are a thing that can be done well or done badly. Dream World is one of the worst islands. Just because it's a big island. There's 10 properties in the island. 2 districts and no suits. There are no suits in the island. It makes being there kind of hell, unless you specifically are trying to get properties to get somewhere to invest in because you got screwed and were unable to get properties anywhere else on the board. That's, like, the only reason you'd want to be an island. And that's not a good reason to want to be an island. Like, I don't know. It's one of the places you just do not want to be. When you get sent to island, you're like, God, I'm an island. I need to get the hell out of it as fast as possible most of the time. And even if you do have a property in island, like, it's hard to guarantee you get there, because the warps are all, like, decently from, like, they're not close intersections or anything, so, I mean, they're usually not most boards, but, I don't know, it's a weird island. It's still a fun board. You know, it's still fine. It's not a bad board. I'm always down to play Dream World, but it's always just, like, a bit awkward because of that middle island. It looks weird, but once you understand the board, it doesn't, like, actually play that weird. It's just kind of awkward. Freeway. Freeway sucks. I know I said a second ago, boards that have more limits can be good, but there is a limit to that. Freeway has, like, no player agency. And there's some boards without player agency that actually plays pretty highly. Like, some of the 10k boards I think are fine without player agency, but, like, this is a 20k board. And it's an 11 district board. So, like, you never have any choice in anything. You just go in a direction, and there are literally 0 intersections on this board. I know how it looks, but this is actually a double board, where you, like, if you go up, you go around like this, you get all 4 suits, and then you pass bank. And then you keep going to go towards the second loop, where you get all the suits and hit bank. It's really... Like, even on top of everything, it has a problem. It's really hard to actually visualize where you're going. Like, it actually is kind of hard to visualize it. Each one's basically, like, a weird L shape, but It's kind of weird. That already makes it worse to begin with. And, like, you don't have any choices or anything, which is another thing that's just like, okay, sure. For a board this big, an 11 district board, or it might be 10 districts, that's one of the two, either 11 or 10. Like, oh my god, it's just like, it's agonizing. And then that's not even getting to the worst, but that's not even the worst, but it's not even like the second worst thing about this board. The second worst thing about this board is that there are random warps that just completely screw you over. Like, the ones on the edge here, they're fine. They don't really bother you. But the other two warps, the ones that go the bottom left to top right warp, just screw you out of promotion. And in a board where you don't have agency, being able to just get warped and whoops, you're not going to get promotion the next time you go back to bank, awful. Or if you do, you have to, like, really delay yourself in order to make sure you get it. Like, to get all the suits you need if you only needed one, right? Like, if you were coming around this way and you hit warp and you only needed this suit, you're here, and well, if you want to get suit, you have to go the long way back to bank. It's annoying. Obnoxious, and that's not even the worst thing about this board. The worst thing that City. Maybe it's better than that, but I don't know. Especially, but it's 20k. 20k. Oh god, no. D easy. Maybe I can move it up to C if I played more of it on 15k, but 20k now, awful. Which is its default. Which most of these boards are being ranked as their default, which I usually like playing on as their default most of the time. Skyscraper! Ooh, Skyscraper! A+. By the way, the differentiator for S and A+ to me, both of these are like amazing. Amazing boards. I love to get them every time. But S is like my favorite of all time. Like these are the like amazing boards. I love Skyscraper. Skyscraper is like really dynamic. There's no like basic promotion loop. Like your promotion loop can vary depending on where you go, where you start, what you want to get first, what properties you want to go to. It's got interesting enough bank loops for the late game where you can do bank loops pretty easy, and you have multiple options for bank loops. But like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong with that. I don't know, the 2 floors is just interesting. That's sort of the main thing before I even talk about bank loops. Like, I don't know, multiple floors are interesting. Like the way that's handled, it's basic. It's a kind of weird concept for this early on in the series, but it worked, and it's like pretty basic, and just, I don't know. It's a dynamic board. It's one of the more dynamic boards where like it really just changes every time you play it because there's so many different ways to approach the board. It's kind of the same with Peach's Castle too, honestly, even though it's a lot more basic. Like, I don't know, games play out very differently each time you play them, and they're always like fun. I don't know, it's just interesting. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's like a stockbroker on the bottoms, I'm not sure if it's bottom or top, but like it's the right floor, based on how we're looking at it here. There's a stockbroker on the bottom floor. It's kind of interesting. I don't know, it's just cool. It's got the weird districts you don't even have to go to, but you probably will if you're trying to make efficient bank loops. But like you don't have to. I don't know. I just like Skyscraper. It's fun. Gertrude from Edith Jockey Street 2 from SNES. This is not the same as Cymenia from Wii, by the way. These are distinct boards. I like this board fine. It's a 2-half board, classic 2-half board, but it's kind of interesting because you do actually have a bit of a bank loop. Spoilers when I talk about Cymenia. I don't like Cymenia that as much because the bank loop is like super long. There's a decent bank loop here that you can take, but it's not like you really have to take it. And if you do take it, it's like you have to take this loop, so top ones become a bit less important, but you just don't have to because there's 3 suits at the top, and it's not like extremely longer, so you could do that. The islands are kind of interesting. Even though there's no suits there, it becomes a bit of a death island. Like, you could, more than Dreamworld. Dreamworld's a bit weird, but like this, there's 6 space district or islands with 2 warps, one that warps you to the opposite eye, and like one that warps you out. So it makes it so that if you're stuck in the island, at least you're probably going to be going between islands, which is somewhat more interesting. And, like, also the district, it's one district. The 2 islands are one district. So, like, it makes it an interesting play to try to build off of them and, like, make it your main district. I've had somebody do that in a game. Oh, shit. Excellent, turned my volume up too loud there. Hopefully that doesn't pick up on OBS. And, I don't know, it's just kind of fun. It's pretty basic. It's just a basic 2-half board, but, with a bank loop. It's 8, that's the big thing compared to Cymenia, is if you want to go to bank, you waste, like, 9 spaces. Which is fine. That's enough to reasonably waste for a bank loop, at least compared to Cymenia. Maybe I'd rank it worse if I hadn't played Cymenia and liked it worse. I don't know, it's fine. It's fine board. Looks like a slime. That's also cute. That is points that it looks like a slime. That does make it better. Sophie's Cavern. Sophie's Cavern is a board. Good. If you play this board, you should play it on 3. Even though it's a 2 board, it's one of the main boards in Jockey Street 3. You should play it on 3. Because it has, like, special backgrounds and everything. It's one of the main boards. And that makes it more interesting. It looks really good in 3. All the boards that are special to 3 just look really good in it. Sophie's Cavern. It's fine. Well, it's kind of weird with its 3 floor that aren't perfectly shown in this tier image. It's a 3-floor map it seems complicated, but it really just plays like a 2-half board with an island, kind of like Slimania. Or have we played any others like it? Like Lake Mountain. It's like something like Lake Mountain or the Americas with an island. And the shape does make it interesting, but I don't know, it's just a kind of a good 1.5 board. I think the thing that brings it above for me is that the island has all 4 suits, and that's always interesting to me. It gives you a reason to like want to go to island because you can get all 4 suits there. So it's like, oh, I hit a warp, sweet, I can go to island and get stuff there. And that also makes the properties on that island more valuable because you might be happy to go to island. And there's like 4 warps to island throughout the board, the 2 on each half, which is kind of wild. And there's also, if you're playing on 3, also 2. There's also cards that warp you specifically to island. So you'll see a bunch of that. I don't know. It's a fun 2-half board. Like there's a lot of 2-half boards. I'm gonna talk about those a lot. And I don't know. They're interesting. They're good. They're generally good. There's a few bad ones. I mean, it's like, Shell Out. There's also a bunch of those in the 10K category. But I don't know. I like it. It's good 2-half board. Also, the island is one way, which is interesting. One, because it makes homes a bit more interesting. You can do fun stuff with homes on one-way paths on islands. Makes it kind of like a unique strategy you can do, like to try to make a death island where you have expensive properties and you home people there. And it's more like an actual strat you can do on boards with one-way islands, which sometimes is pretty interesting. The problem is some people find that toxic. I don't really find it toxic a lot just because it doesn't happen very often. It's very rare to happen, and I feel like it doesn't even always work when you see it as a potential game strategy. Like it's almost never the optimal thing to do. Like it's very rarely, but when it is, it's fucking hype. And Sophie's Cabin, Undersea City or Underwater Metropolis, A+. This is basically just Peach's Castle again. It looks weird, but it's really just a 4-quadrant map, like Peach's Castle. It really fundamentally does not play differently from Peach's Castle. The really just big difference, like all of the intersections are fake, except for the ones that lead to Bank. Those are true intersections, but like the suits at these intersections are all fake. You just go straight through them. Bank is also a fake intersection, so it's just Peach's Castle again. But Peach's Castle is fun. It doesn't like change the dynamics of it too much. The big thing is that you will land on less properties playing this board. Maybe you like that more than Peach's Castle then. Like, there's a lot of question mark spaces. Like, you will get a billion cards playing this map. There's like, what, 3 question marks on every quadrant? 4 if you consider the fact that you pass each suit twice. Like, pretty good. It also makes potentially using balloon ports to go to suits an option because you'll be closer to Bank afterwards. That's kind of fun. It's still Peach's Castle. It's just Peach's Castle again, but it's fun. I like Peach's Castle. It's not as good as Peach's Castle. It's not as dynamic. Like like I said, the less properties I think does make it not as good for me, but it's still amazing. It's just like a different way to play it. Anyway, speaking of boards that are basically just Peach's Castle, I don't remember the original name for this. It's like Solar System, I think. I think it's called Solar System. I'm gonna call it Robin Hood Ruins because it's the Robin Hood Ruins on the Wii version. It could be A+, could be A for me. Again, it's basically just Peach's Castle again. This is even, like, closer to Peach's Castle. It's just kind of oriented weirdly. And there's also there's also an extra bank district. Ooh. Extra bank district is kind of interesting. That's really the big difference between them, and but honestly, the fact it looks the way it does, it's interesting on paper. Actually playing it is not that interesting, at least when you're playing on, like, Wii, where you have the doors. It's just kind of weird. I don't know. Could be A+, could be A, depends on what day you ask me. Because it's just, I don't know, I don't like looking at the door wraparound. I'd rather have actual wraparound than door wraparound. Do you will. It's Peach's Castle again. Aleph Guard, specifically the Itadakishi 2 version. There are 3 Aleph Guards. They're all different boards. And, this one is C. They're all C, spoilers. I don't know. Like, I'm a fan of boards that are just like, let's make a shape and just make it a board. Like a slime board. or like the Mario M, but I don't know. It's a 25k board. I'm generally not a fan of 25k boards in general. And I don't know. It's way too big for a 2-half board. Like, you have to go like left half, right half, left half, right half, unless you get screwed by island or by or you land on bank. And I don't know. That's not interesting to me. Like, just because they're so long, each half is so long. It's just a long, like, I don't know, you just go way too long without passing the bank, which is just not interesting to me in the late game. It makes it, like, harder to build up stocks in a meaningful way, and it's not as interesting as, I don't know, Nalbina, which I'll get to eventually, but, like, I compared Nalbina because I like Nalbina a lot, even though it's kind of similar and it takes a long time to actually buy stocks, but I don't know. Also, the island sucks ass, like, awful island, like, Jesus. There's 5 properties and no suits. No suits on an island already tends to be a bad thing. And also, you can just get warped to the other side, completely screwing you out of your promotion loop. Like, wow. Hate that. I don't know. Sometimes it's fine. There's other boards that do that are fine. But, like, I don't know. If there was anything interesting about the island other than the fact it could screw your promotion loop, I might like it more, but it's fine. It's not bad. It's in C. I still like the board fine enough. I'm going to enjoy the game decently enough, but it's like, again, I'd really rather be playing any other board than Alfguard. By the way, this one from Me to Talk to You 2 is also the same version that is in Portable and Wii, and maybe PS4. I don't even know if it's in PS4. I don't know the PS4 version that well. But it's the same that's in Portable and Wii. Also, Gorgeous King, probably. Okay, one more for Me to Talk to You 2. Ultrade's Abby from Wii, or Japan. Japanese Archipelago in 2. And 3. And it's been a lot of games. It's B. You could maybe convince me it's C. But I like it enough. I think it's B. It's kind of interesting. It's like a 3-segment board in the mainland. Which is kind of interesting. The islands are kind of cool in that each of them has 2 suits. And there's two islands. You can warp between them and get all your suits. Kind of interesting, but it can also screw you over quite badly. I don't know. It's pretty decent. I think it's there being the different paths there kind of make it more interesting. I mean, it's kind of like Alfguard. I really don't know why I like Ultrade Zabby more than I like Alfguard. Also, I'm calling it's Ultrade Zabby on the Wii, which is, again, if it's on the Wii, I'm probably going to refer to it by its name on Wii. I don't know. It might just be the islands. I don't know. It also being like 3 segments, or... Oh, that's also one thing I do like about this more than Alfguard, is that if you want to make a bank loop, you can. It's harder, and you might have to pass bank, but, like, you can land on bank, and then go upwards to get another bank loop, even if you already came from the top path. And also, if you're playing smart with your vacants, you can also try to really stack it so that you can try to do as many bank loops as possible and kind of take advantage of the fact that even if you don't hit your balloon ports, you'll still pass bank again and get more stocks and do something with that. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's a big bank. It's not like it's like a 3-district loop to go from bank to bank. But you know, Ultrade Zabby, it's all right. It's also shaped like Japan, so that's something. Alright, on to Gorgeous King, the PS1 version, which is basically just Need to Start 2 plus a few boards. And also, I think, minus the Dragon Quest ones, I think. Floating Continent, awesome board. Floating Continent's awesome. I love Floating Continent. It is a 2-half board, but it's kind of unique in that, like, the bigger loop, let's say that bigger loop on the left, is in a loop with the bank on the right. And it's the only 2-bank board. I didn't even mention that part. It's a double loop board with 2 banks. That's awesome. Getting your promotion is interesting, like, because like you have to take each loop, but you could switch to the other loop, but you don't get all the suits. It lets you do bank loops where you go from one bank to the other bank, which makes the 2 banks districts more powerful than the others in the game, or the 4-bank districts rather, but for reasons that's not always going to be important, because there's also warps on this board. There's warps in the middle that send you to each of the 4 outside suits. It's always interesting. Also, if you play this game, even though if you were playing it on 3, you wouldn't have music because it's not one of the main boards, I would still recommend playing on 3 because on Wii, while this is on Wii, I believe I ported it myself. Warping doesn't give you a card when you warp to a suit space, but it does in 3, and I've played it on both. I like getting more cards, so play this on 3 and just use your own music. But it's fun. It's good. The warping is really chaotic, but it's not like game ruining. Like, it's not like, man, I got warped to island and then I got stuck here for 20 turns. It's I got warped. Now I just have to waste a bit more time getting back to bank, which would be annoying if it didn't happen to everybody all the time, which is funny. It's always funny when you get warped away when you're like on your way to bank or something. I don't know. I just love floating content. It's a fun time. I played it twice and they're both good games. Or maybe 3 times even. I don't remember. Zapata's geoglyphs. It's fine. This geoglyphs is fine. It's the male and female symbols. What if we took those and made those a map? It's fine. It got some interesting layouts, interesting ways to go around and get all your suits. It's fine. Only problem I have is the bank area is too good. When I played this, it was a 3-player game, and I had both districts next to the bank, and I just steamrolled the game. It wasn't even like a question, because I was able to get as many stocks as I wanted, and also not have to pay anybody's properties, because I owned both districts there. And even then, I only owned one for like a good amount, but I like traded into the other, and like that didn't felt like a particularly fun win. It felt like, oh wow, I sure do own the bank district win. I don't know. Maybe if I was playing with players that did more bank loops, or they actually realized they should, or were in a better place in the game. I don't know. I played one game on this, and it was like all right. It was all right board. I'd be down to play it again, in a game where the bank districts weren't so like universally owned by one player. But I feel like that's not even uncommon to do, because you could just loop the bank. The bank loop, by the way, is the bottom on the male. It's the bottom head on male. So like, I don't know. It probably could be a bit more interesting. One of those where they try to force a symbol into a map, and it's just not as interesting as others that do the same thing. What is this called again? Cursed Mansion? What is this? I'm trying to find it in here. Do I have this? Haunted Manor. Okay, Haunted Manor. I kind of hate putting in B, because I actually really like this board a lot, but it's a bit degenerate. It's a bit of a degenerate board. Like, it is huge. It is the biggest board in the franchise at like 14 districts. You can also you also wouldn't be able to play this in Wii. You'd only be able to play it in 3, just because like there's just too many districts to even be playable in the Wii version. It is massive. Getting a promotion takes so long, unless you get sent to Island. It makes the Island kind of like really busted to go to Island. It makes the Island districts really overpowered, because you really want to be on Island if you're trying to get promotion. And there's also a lot of warps out of it. Like, I don't know, it's just big. Just like look at it. It's huge. Yeah, and it just kind of promotes some degenerate strategy, like bank island stuff. Like, I like the idea of homing. It's also a one-way island too, which makes homing possible, which I don't like as much as something like Sophie's Cavern, because there are, I don't know, it's easier to get stuff in island. The fact that the island is more powerful makes the fact that you can home people to it less interesting. It's more interesting as a niche strat versus like an actual strat that you should try to play for to win the game on a regular basis, which you probably should on that map. I don't know. It could be more interesting. I mean, I don't know what could be more interesting. It's interesting. It is what it is. I really want to put it in A, but after the games I played in it, I don't feel right putting it in A. It is quite degenerate. Prehistoric times, Serpent Era. I don't know. This could go A or B for me. It could go either way. My friend, I probably think it's B, but my friends are convincing me to put up an A. I just played a game on this yesterday. It's good. It's interesting, where you have like suits on each of these 4 little corner islands you go out to. That's interesting. That's kind of interesting. It makes owning those bits pretty fun. Makes going around the board interesting, though it is long promotion loops. The warps are kind of interesting. There's warps on each of the corners. A lot of fun stuff too. The big problem with it that makes me kind of hesitant to put in A is that the bottom left island, bottom right island, and the bank district are too powerful in relative to every other district, because once you get to that mid-late game, you should probably be making bank loops more than going for promotion, probably. And that makes the top half of the board plus the left and right paths kind of irrelevant. Because like, you just don't go up there. That happened in the game we were playing the other day. Just nobody went up there, and the player who he had like huge stakes in the left path and the top left island thing. They're not actually islands, but I'm calling them islands anyway. Just nobody landed there. No one paid him any money, and he was struggling to do anything for a lot of the game, especially because going near bank was too dangerous for him because of all the properties that were owned. So I don't know, and that doesn't feel like an uncommon thing to happen. So I don't know. It's interesting. Still a good board. Definitely a good board. Probably should be B, but I don't know. My friends convinced me it's probably A. Space Bunny, or is it? I don't know. What is this? It's something bunny, right? Queen Bunny. That's what this is called. Queen Bunny. That's a board. Good board. It's a kind of basic idea for a board. Basically just a bunch of different paths you can take to get all the suits. It's kind of like basic to see how it plays just by looking at it. There's no they're all true intersections, all of the intersections of the board, which is I don't know, just kind of it's just a basic good board. It has a basic concept, and it just plays well. Obviously the ones closer to bank are a bit more powerful than the ones farther from bank, but not completely. Like, you don't delay a lot of spaces by choosing to take a left path or right path instead of the closer ones, because of the fact that, what was I gonna say? Because, they're not that much longer, so if you're making bank loops, it's not that much more to go to the left or right paths if the other ones are too dangerous. And even if they are, both the left side and the right side, you could take either one, whichever one you think is safer of the shorter ones. So there's a lot of options for what to do in the late game, and what spaces to go to, how to make your bank loops. I don't know, there's a lot of options. It's a good board with a lot of options. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of boards where limits are better. Sometimes the more open ones are really fun too. It's not like one's better than the other. It's just for certain styles of boards, sometimes one works better, sometimes the other works better. This type of board, open, works really well. Just a lot of options, a very dynamic board. I think I've only played it like once or twice, but it was, I don't know, I can obviously tell just looking at it, it's pretty dynamic. And the game we played was really fun too, so. It's a game that looks the way it plays. A lot of these I have only played one time, but especially the earlier ones, but yeah. Good A Galaxy. I think it's called Space Nebula and Gorgeous King, which is what's originally from. I know, Good A Galaxy is not a Wii original. It's from Gorgeous King. Great board. Really good. Might even be A+. It's just really fun. There's no board like Good A Galaxy. It's like kind of a two-half board, but like not actually. Where you kind of just like go around, and you get all the suits, but it's like a weird way to go around. There's not like a very like basic like, yeah, you should be doing this to go around. Like, you could do the long ways, you can go through bank a bunch. Making bank loops is like a thing you can do, but it's not basic because you have to go from one half to the other. Which, I don't know, interesting. Makes bank loops possible, but not like overbearing, like, or too safe. It doesn't make bank loops safe. That's what I like. Bank loops existing is good as long as they're not like super safe all the time, or if it's safe for everybody. Like one of those two options. Like, that's why like Queen Bunny has safe bank loops because you go left or right side, but also like it's safe for everybody because the other person might not like left and they go right. You might like right and they go left. It works one of both ways. And Good Day Galaxy is just, you can make bank loops. It's a thing you should probably do, but it's not easy to do it. And because of the fact that it's not safe to do it all the time, which is always interesting. And the island is also a one-way island. It's a little strip on the Wii version, but it's an actual island on the Gorgeous King in 3. It's an all-suits island. I always love all-suits islands. All-suits islands are fun because it's a reason, like, yes, going to island might be a very good thing because I can get all the suits there. That's fun. God, You threw a lot. Oh, that's just fun. It's a good board. Just getting all the suits is just I don't know, fun. Going around to get it's just a fun and dynamic. Again, it's a dynamic board. Boards play differently all the time. Homing on island is also a strategy in this board, and it's not doesn't feel that toxic here. I don't know. It's fun. Cross. I don't know about Cross. To be fair, I have played one game on Cross, and it was extremely degenerate. It got to a point where, like, all of us were just on this left side, going back and forth over and over again, while the AI was actually making money and won the game. It was a 3-player game. That was something. It was really weird, so I don't know if my ranking of this board might not be good. But the weird gimmick of this board is that the left and right arms, like, go up and down as you pass the switches in 3. Oh, we're getting into 3, by the way! This is the first Edoxy 3 board. I love Edoxy 3. Edoxy is fun. And any board that's one of these main boards on 3, you should play on 3 versus any other version. Some of them you have to, because 3, like this board, has 4 different boards that have passing switches that activate every time you pass the space, which change the board. And this is the worst of them. The other ones are all better, but it's just kind of weird and awkward. The left and right districts are, like, super useless. Like the left circle and the right circle, the ones on the very edge, because this isn't a well, it looks like it. It is not a horizontal wraparound board. It is vertical wraparound, but not horizontal. I don't know. The bank district is the bank districts are, like, really powerful. I feel like, in theory. Again, I only played the one game and it was really degenerate. It was dumb, like the most cursed game we've ever played. And, like, it's just kind of awkward. It's just an awkward board. I don't understand the design philosophy of this board. Maybe if I played it more, I'd get it. But, like, those left and right circles on the very edge are what completely ruin it for me. Like, why are they there? There's no reason to be there unless you're desperate for properties. Oh, what is this? Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is fun. I considered putting an A+. I had an amazing game. I had, like, 2 really, really amazing games on here and one, like, pretty mediocre game. So I'll put an A for now. But I love this board. It seems like it's just a basic board because there's literally no intersections. But as you play the game and you draw cards, those corners, like, come inland. Like, they merge with the board as you pull specific cards. So it makes it's a board that changes as you go on. So you're like, oh, you're like 20 turns into the game. Whoops, another thing just dropped in. There's more properties for you to go get them. See if you can use that district. It's fun. It's a fun game. It's 25k because it is a big board. Oh, but it's fun. I don't know. There's something about, like, it's a game that starts really limited, but then gives you more options as the game goes on. There's also 2 banks. That also helps it. Like, it's a game, even though you don't have agency where you move, there's a bank and a passing stockbroker on the other side. So you get to buy stocks frequently. That gives the board more agency than you'd think it does. It's fun. As this cord was stuck. Whoops. So I say for that, I should probably get faster, like, about an hour already. I'm, like, not even halfway. Fun. Mermaid City, awesome. Again, A+. Oh, this is the second, the passing spaces. So this middle bridge that has a sleeping space, bank, and a mission square moves left and right across the board, 1 space at a time, as you pass the passing switches. It makes an extremely dynamic game where the bank is going at any given time is really important, and, like, you have to play around where the bank is, like, and sometimes you get screwed where, like, you're next to the bank but then the bridge gets put past you and now you get screwed. You can't get bank. I think that's interesting because it can happen to everybody, and it doesn't happen, like, all the time. It happens, like, maybe once or twice per game through somebody, and it doesn't, like, ruin your game if it happens because it's actually a small board. This is the default 20k, but it's a 6 district board. So you should probably play it as a 15k, maybe a 16 or 17 game board. But, actually, I don't think you can play 16 or 17 on 3. This is a 3 exclusive. It's also on PS4. But, in the Arcade Sheet 3, you should be playing this on 3. Also, this is, while it's technically on Wii, Machu Picchu played on 3. The board doesn't work exactly as it would otherwise, and I'd recommend that original version. Mermaid City. Fun board. Love it. It's so it's dynamic board. It's not exactly that's dynamic, but it's interesting. It's always interesting. It's a suspenseful board because you have to play around bridge. If it's on the right side, you can possibly do really, really quick bank loops, but only as long as until somebody moves the bank I don't know, I love this board. It's so fun. Moonlight Cruise. I think I have this in A. Yeah, I have this in A. It's a 2-half board. It's another 2-half board, but it's a fun 2-half board. It's a 2-half board with bank in the middle. It's usually the case with 2-half boards, but it also has boats that let you go from one side to the other to get a little bit of a shortcut. They work like the Magnuses in Wii, if you only play the Wii version in Magmageddon. I don't know, it just adds a layer that's just a bit more dynamic to the board. There's like cards that do interesting stuff, like shutting down the bank bridge by a card. That's interesting. Cards that like shut down the boats for a certain number of turns. It's just a good 2-half board. Like there's a lot of 2-half boards. This is a really good one. Rainforest is awesome. This could go either A plus or A. It could go either way, but I'm putting it in A. This is my top board in A. Like I have a bunch of boards in my A tier. I currently have this one ranked above everybody else. Rainforest is so good. It's a basic board. It's a very basic setup. Like, just look at it. It's very basic, this loop to go around. But, I don't know, it's fun. It's a board where it's just a good basic fundamental board. Kind of like Peach's Castle. It's just kind of fundamental. Games play differently because it's just so basic. There's, like, I don't know, just a lot of ways to approach it because it doesn't get, like, cluttered down with its gimmicks. Right? It's fun. The only weird thing with this board, and I think the thing that brings it down, is that there were, like, 3 warps to islands. Like 3 for this type of board, and it's just awkward. The island is very disruptive because it just warps you around. It's less about getting stuck in island. It's more about getting sent to island and then like warped to the right side of the map. And you have to suddenly slowly make your way back. Kind of disruptive. But there is a passing stockbroker on island, so you can buy stocks while on island while passing through the stockbroker space, which is, you know, kind of makes up for it a bit. If you play this played in 3, while it is probably on Wii, the fact that it's a stockbroker, not that you can pass by. You can't do that on Wii without being a bank. So play this on 3. And you should be playing all these on 3, if they're from 3. Love Rainforest. I honestly want to put an A+, but that island is too disruptive. But it's at the top of A. High A tier. Space City, or I think, is it called Space? No, Space Cafe. That's what it is. Love this board. Oh, it's awesome. Space Cafe is so cool. There's a bunch of, so there's like these little 4 circles on each side and a bridge in the middle. And whenever you pass the passing switch, it rotates the bridge 90 degrees. So that little line rotates. This board's just fun. It's just fun. Like, I don't know, it looks really fun. It looks cool. It just plays fun. It's also interesting because notice there's 4 suits in a row. You only get the suits by getting all 4 in a row next to each other. And like, so it's just like, venture out to one of those, the left or the top island, the left or top circles, get all your suits and make your way back to bank. I don't know, it's interesting. There's no other board like that in the franchise. In the passing switches, making the bridge go around is interesting. Though sometimes you do get screwed a bit by the bridge because you could be like going downwards and then the bridge gets pressed like the switch gets pressed twice and now you're going back to the island you came from. That's the one thing that might ruin the board. Like, I feel like if I played more of this board, I might put it down in A. Also, oh my god, this like left circle and the right circle are really, really broken. If you're playing with 25% vacants, there are 2 vacants in each of these circles. Because one of them is a guaranteed vacant, and the one gets randomly placed. So that's like 2 balloon ports, and you can just like loop this area, get a balloon port, go back to bank, then go back here, do it again, get balloon port, go back to bank. It's kind of busted. I honestly should not be putting this in A+. If I played more games, like I played 2 or 3 games on it, I think I did that every time. And so, I don't know, might be overpowered, might be a bit much. But I like the board enough. It's a really fun novelty, but if I played this board like 2 more times, I'd probably put it down to like A or B. But I like this board. I'm putting in A+, fuck you. Sushi, amazing board, A+. Another banger passing switchboard from 3. Like, look at these 3. Oh my god, I love Itadaki Street 3. It's like my favorite game. Like, the boards that are unique to it are like so fun. It's just good. Like, I don't know, dude. So this is another passing switchboard, but instead of like the bridge moving or this other bridge moving or like the arms in Cross's case, it's just that circle on the outside turns by 1 every time somebody passes the switch, like a fucking sushi conveyor belt, because the board is sushi conveyor belt. It literally is a sushi conveyor belt. One of I would say the best um example in Fortune Street of taking like a board idea just it's based on a thing and making it a board. Like it thematically fits it gameplay wise, and it looks like it, and it's in 3 where the background is just a sushi store or restaurant. Oh my god, I love this board. I love this board conceptually. It's so good. I've only played it once. I might have put it in S if I played it more than once, or I might even put it lower, because the one time I did play it, the only problem with it is I feel like you didn't pay rent, very high rent. Like very few people landed on like properties very often. But I don't know, it's interesting. Um, so, but I don't know, it just turns around. I don't know what to say other than the fact that this like thing goes in a circle. That's awesome. That's just so cool. Uh, I really don't have anything to say. This is awesome. I love playing this board just for that reason alone. It's just awesome. But it also plays really well. The island, I don't really know why this board has an island. It really doesn't need one. There's a lot of really fun cards. Like Edox G3 has a lot of boards with like cards that dynamically change each board, and like there's so many of them for this board. It changes it so much. Love this board. Also, one thing you mentioned about Space Cafe. Space Cafe also has like spaceships that function like boats. That makes that board better. Sorry, I just remember that. But sushi's good. It's a good board. Love it. I want to play more of it. I'm sad I've only played it once. All right, now we've gotten to the fundamentally unplayable board, Japan. Japan. Well, this looks weird, right? But if you haven't played this board, as you get cards throughout the game, more islands pop up. Kind of like Machu Picchu, where things get connected to the main board, but instead, just islands pop up that you can get boats to. The problem is that on several of those islands, there are stockbroker spaces, and those can be passing stockbroker spaces. This is actually a 25k board. And, like, I don't know, man. I played this board once, and it was basically us just kind of getting enough money, getting up to like 10 or 15k between me and my other player and the AI, until eventually an island came up. I got to the island first, and then I bought all 4 properties on the island, got 500 stocks within like 6 turns, and then won the game because I max invested when nobody even had a chance to catch up, because the boats are one way. They work like the Magmaluses and we. One person can take a boat, and then like one person can take a boat, and it just like keeps going. So it's just that alone makes this board unplayable. Like it was literally the first island that popped up, and I just won the game as soon as it happened because I just got unlimited stocks, all the properties. Nobody even was able to go to the island with me. It's stupid. It's dumb. Don't play this board. Maybe if I had more sense of house rules, we could go against it. But even with it, this board doesn't seem that fun. Even with it, it's a fun idea. Like it's a small island that actually does, the board gets bigger the more the game goes on. That's kind of awesome. I was excited to play this board until I realized it's extremely, extremely degenerate. Like, God, is it a degenerate board. Awful. One more Medoc 3. Bowser's Castle, believe it or not, isn't... This board, it's called Horror House in 3. And yeah, it's actually not Bowser's Castle, even though it feels like Bowser's Castle. It fucking feels like a new Super Mario Bros. Bowser's Castle board. Like, that's what it feels like. Yet it isn't actually. It's from Medoc 3. It's like a weird graveyard place. Amazing board. Awesome. Love it. So unique. No other board plays like this. It's just got all the branches where you have to get all the suits. And every time you go to the end of the branches, you go back to bank. Oh my god, it's so fun. It's so unique. The big problem with the board, which honestly, I love it, you are strapped for cash in this board. Your promotion loop is long. You have a long promotion loop. So you have to be careful how you spend your money at the start of the game. But it feels unlike Freeway, where you just can't afford properties. This feels like you have to be skillful when you choose what to buy, what not to buy. So it's a lot more dynamic. A lot of games change. The only thing I've realized with this, also in the version 3, the version 3, there's two big differences. The one on Wii is particularly bad in that case because you can only roll a 6 on the Wii version. You can roll a 7 on the 3 version. But also in the 3 version, there's a lot of special cards that like swap the locations of the bank and the casino. What? That's wild. There's one that locks the rotating suits in place, so they don't change. That one's not good, but I don't know. It's weird. There's a lot of other weird cards. I don't know. It's just a really fun board. It's always a great time, and it's like a suspenseful game to play because it's a board. It's a suffocating board. It's like a suffocating board because of the length of getting promotion loop and such. But I don't know. So it's still really interesting, really dynamic. Only problem, homes might be overpowered on this board. Twice I've been able to win on this board with triple bankruptcy, which is fun to do once in a while. But if I can do it more than once, that might be the board's fault. There are guaranteed vacants on the top and the bottom branches, of which both of them are also all single district branches as well. And if you get like a monopoly or a quadruple or a quintuple with like 6 districts, and you build a home and make your properties expensive, given how low everyone's money is, you can really cripple everybody and really put yourself in a good lead by doing it. Even if you're not making a lot of stock money from doing it, it's a bit busted, especially because all the branches are one-way paths. You can't like choose which way to go. So you force them to have to roll into your properties, and there's no like potential warp they can hit if it was an island. It might be overpowered. The fact I've been able to win twice might suspect that it might be overpowered. I don't know. I'd have to play more games and see, but for right now, this is A+. Even then, I would just house roll ban it for this board specifically, and then it would stay A+. Love this board. These should not be next in line. Or should they be? Should they be next in line? I don't think so. I'm gonna put them. Let's put them back a bit. Let's put them after portable. Get to those. Oh god. Okay, let's get through special. Airship. I love I was just talking about Bowser's Castle. Airship might not be A. It seems like an A board, but I have 2 games, both of which are not good to suspect it of because well, it's just a 2-half board against a 2-half board, but with an optional bank visit instead of a mandatory bank visit. Seems fine enough. 25k, which is also fine. With a short bank bridge, that's fine. Problem is this bottom right island, dude. Oh my god. The bottom right island has 1 warp and 1 cannon. If you home somebody to that island, you have won. I have had 2 games where I owned both districts on that island, and it's very easy to do so because it's hard to escape the island. So I bought all the properties on island in 2 different games, and then homed people to island, and then they just all died. And I won triple bankruptcy twice on this board due to homing somebody to the bottom right island. I've won triple bankruptcy like 6 or 7 times total. 2 of them were on Airship, 2 of them were on Bowser's Castle. The one on Airship just felt like, no, this is actually unfair. Bottom right island, you should not have homes. We explicitly have banned that now, though we haven't played Airship a 3rd time yet. But it's way too overpowered on Airship. Do not build a home on the bottom right island unless you do not want to have friends anymore. Because the problem is when you home everyone, the cannon doesn't warp you off the island. It just warps you to someone else's space. So it's a 1 in 12 space to warp out. When you force everybody there, and it is brutal. Do not build homes on this island. Explicitly ban it. And I don't have enough data past that to actually know whether it should be ranked legitimately. I'm putting it in A because it seems fine. It seems like an A board. Aleph Guard Special. This is another version of Aleph Guard that's in Itadaki Street Special, which, by the way, we're at now. With Airship, we're in Special, the other PS2 version, the first Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy version. Airship, I don't know. I don't like the other Aleph Guard either. I like it more than I like Itadaki Street 2 and Wii Aleph Guard. Because this intersection, the left one, is actually a true intersection. So you can actually make a short loop around and go back to bank, and it does make it more interesting. There's also a rotating suit on the left loop, on the right side, which I don't know why that exists. It really doesn't make sense unless you can somehow guarantee you get heart there and make a short loop on the left side, I guess, but it's kind of weird. It's like the least sensical rotating suit in any board. The island's more interesting because there's a rotating suit on island, which at least makes it like, okay, I'm on island, but at least I'm getting suits, right? That's the type of island we have here. It's a 3 warps for some reason. It's fine. I don't. It's still Alfguard though. It still plays like the other Alfguard, with some slight differences that do kind of make an impact, especially there being no intersections on the right. It's like a long no man's land. Well, it's not even no man's land because you have to go there in the sport, but I don't know. I don't like Alfguard. It's just a long game. I don't like 25k boards that much. In general, I mean, there's some exceptions like Machu Picchu and Floating Continent, but I don't know. I'd rather not play Alfguard. Alexandria, hey, this is like, I don't know, one of the better 10k boards. I like this one a lot. I don't know, it takes what's Shell Isle and makes it slightly more interesting because the left side's smaller. It's also a forced bank intersection, so you can't just like choose which way you go on the left, which would make it less interesting because you'd be able to, it would make Bank District like not even valuable at all. Make it like useless having Bank District. But anyway, but it's a forced intersection. The agency on this board is basically just where you buy your stocks, and also if you land on bank, you can choose your path. But I don't know, it's a fun 10k board. It's short enough that it's like not a big deal. Like, what? Oh, you got screwed out of not being able to make choices. Who cares? That's a 10k board, you know? Like, who cares? It's just a fun short game, and fun things will happen, and it's fine. I don't know. I like it more than Shell Isle. It's that the shorter loop on the left and the bigger one on the right. Just fun. It's also Land of Mist. No, it's not Land of Mist. It's Candyland. I originally translated Land of Mysteries, but that was a mistranslation. It's Candyland on the Itadaki Street 3, which is actually what this is from. I put this on special. It should be on 3. There's actually a 3 board, Land of Mysteries. But and you should play it on 3 just because it's like Candyland and it's cute. It's made of candy, and that's more interesting than on a random Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest town. Alexandria, I think it's Final Fantasy. Whatever. It's fine. Good. It is a good 10k board. All Trades Abbey Special B. It's a 2-half board. It's a very basic 2-half board. I really don't have much to say about it. There is a passing stockbroker on the island, meaning a stockbroker you can buy stocks every time you pass it. That's kind of interesting. I once had a really memey game where I bought 999 stocks here, and I also lowered the stock price to 1. That's nothing to do with how good this board is. I just found it really funny. I just did that once as a joke. That's fine. It's a very basic 2-half board with islands. What if Moonlight Cruise had an island instead of boats? But boats are more interesting than islands, so I'd rather play Moonlight Cruise. But it's still fine. It's not like C, just because I'd rather play Moonlight Cruise. It's still fine. I'm not going to be upset playing it. Beside. I don't like Beside. Thought either one loved these. We haven't gotten to a D in a while. Boring. It's got the interesting thing with the fish that sends you to the island. Very interesting mechanic. I don't think it's that, but it past that kind of vaguely interesting, but it doesn't really matter because like you can't choose where to go. Like, I mean, you have to go from like bottom left to top right. It's not a fake intersection at Bank, but it's like you have to go left to right. There's like these weird loops at the end, which just exist because certain paths get blocked off when the fish breaks the land. Kind of interesting in theory, but it doesn't actually become that interesting because like you just turn around, and when it's not broken, you just get to choose to ignore the more expensive of the 2 properties. It's not really that interesting. Because you have to go from bottom left to top right, it makes so you can't just like stick on one half of the board, and I think that's generally fine to have bank loops that like your bank loop shouldn't need to involve the entire board, even if you're doing multiple per promotion. It's usually fine, but like I don't know. I mean, again, there's others that are fine. Like the actual 2-half boards, I generally don't have a problem with them as much. Which Beside is a 2-half board. I don't know. It's just boring. I don't know. There's no agency. Like it just feels like a no agency board. You're just going around. Does the fish hit you? Who fucking cares? And you go to an island. It has nothing on it. It has like a rotating suit and like random other spaces. Like, who cares? Don't go. Don't play Beside. spoilers, the portable version's a lot better, even though it's only a few changes. It's a lot better. Fortuna. I have to get Fortuna C. This board looks really interesting. It's one of the most interesting boards because, like, there is no efficient promotion loop. You have to make some, I would say, inefficient move, or like going over the same type of space twice. There is no way to have an efficient promotion loop. It's kind of interesting. In theory, makes the board more dynamic, and it's really cool. There's a very fatal flaw with Fortuna, though, and that's top left district. This top left district is extremely overpowered. I don't know why. It's not even the one that's touching bank. It's the top left. There's two sets of districts in the top left corner. Extremely overpowered. I have played 3, I think, games of Fortuna, and all of them are decided by whoever had control of the top left district. Because if you have vacants there, you can turn them into balloon ports, and therefore you can stay in the top left area as much as you want. You're not forced out of the area. You can loop it infinitely, which normally isn't a big deal because there's no bank there. But if you have balloon ports, you just keep looping over and over again until you either land on bank so you can turn around, or you land on your balloon port and warp to bank and get stocks. And, like, it's just really overpowered to do it. Like, especially if you have all the properties there. It just becomes a game of you're safe because you have the properties. And you always want those properties above anything else. They're the most valuable to invest in because other people also want to be there. Like, this area, yeah, you could bank loop here, but this area usually gets pretty expensive. Like, I don't know, whenever I play these games, these properties get expensive pretty quick, so this area tends to be a lot better. Whoever controls that area wins. That's the problem with this board. It's got a bit of a no man's land to the right. That's usually what I call areas where, like, it's not a part of the bank loop, so that once you get to the late, and especially it's a long path with no intersections. So once you get to the late game, you generally don't want to go there. It's also true in, like, Rainforest as well. It has a no man's land on the right. You tend to be, I don't know. Some boards, I find the existence of a no man's land interesting. Like, at Rainforest, it's fine. Colossus, it's, I don't know. Usually they're not that interesting. I don't know. Oh my god, another S tier board time, guys. It's Midgard. Midgard is so good. Midgard is amazing. It's so dynamic. If you haven't played it, the switches turn this thing in the middle, so that all the outside ring stays the same, but the suits and all the properties inside of the suits all turn 90 degrees when the switch is pressed. And it is extremely dynamic. It is a extremely dynamic board. Like, every game's different. It's just so good. This is a board where you'd think Bank District's overpowered, and it is pretty powerful. But all the properties are cheaper. Like, and they're always cheap in Bank District, but I feel like they can get bought out really easily, and the stocks can also be bought in by anyone anyways, because you can make pretty quick bank loops on this board. So, like, if you're trying to invest in there, someone else will invest in it with you pretty easily. So it doesn't feel that overpowered as you'd think it would be, but I don't know. It's a really dynamic board. The turning stuff makes it really interesting. Just love this board. It's amazing. Nalbina. You would think, when I saw this board, I thought this was going to be D. Actually, this is an A board. I love Nalbina. Nalbina's really fun. It's a 2-half board where you have all suits on both sides. I don't know why. I've played like 3 games on Albina. They've all been amazing games. I love it. I really can't tell you why. There's some matter like you have to commit to stuff, but I don't really know what to say. It's just 2 halves of the board. I don't have a lot to say about Albina. I don't know, the portal is an interesting thing. It actually does change up the game more than you think it does. But it doesn't screw you over that much. Sometimes it does, but not like a lot. I don't really know what to say. Albina's just interesting. It's just, I can't explain why, but all the games I've had are good. And it's part of the reason that I've come to the conclusion that being limited to what you can do isn't always a bad thing. The games can still be really interesting despite that. Robin Oster, also a board. Just look at it. It's an interesting board. You know, you can do bank loops, but it's like a 4-district bank loop, so it's not like super free. It's like Gutrude. And like, but like, I don't know, it's just such a weird shape you have to go around. The island's kind of useless. I don't know, it's just kind of unique. There's a lot of interesting quirks to the way this board plays. I don't really have a lot more to say about it, but it's just kind of fun. Kind of really interesting. Looks funny, and I like boards that look funny. Another board you would think would be shit, but is actually really good, is Red Rock. There are literally 0 intersections. Not a single intersection in this board. This board is amazing. It's so good. I've played this game like 4 or 5 times on this board, and every game has been really, really fun. There's ice switches, which like you can basically freeze a space so that the next time a single person passes the space, they cannot land on it. They will always go to the space after it, and it will not count towards whatever they rolled. So you can make it so that, oh, there's a property in front of me. I'm going to make it so that I can't land on it by making it cheap. Oh, somebody's stuck on island. Let me put a thing on the next portal space so they can't actually get out. Get screwed, idiot. Or, like, this guy's trying to buy this property. This guy's trying to invest. There's so many ways you can apply it. It's just it's a really, really good mechanic that makes this board really fun. As well, even though it looks like it's a lot, there is a passing stockbroker on the bottom, so you do get 2 stock buys per loop around, which is still good. Makes the board playable. You should play this on special because you can't do that in Wii. I don't know. It's good. I love this board. It's good. I don't really know what to say. It's just always fun. I hope my back keeps accidentally pressing buttons on my headset. Hopefully it hasn't muted me at some point. Oh, another good board. There's so many good boards in special, dude. What is this? Seabed Shrine. Good board. It's like, what if Rainforest was a 15k board? That's basically what this is. And also no island. That's good. Rainforest is good, so is this board. The bank loops are a bit easy on this board. That's a big problem I have with the bank boards. The bank loops are a bit too easy and safe because you can do either left or right side and big no man's land on the side. There's also like, what if Colossus were small also? I don't know, it's fun. It's a good board. I might put it to B if I played more of it, but I don't know. I've always had a fun time with this board. Good. Thunder Plains is amazing. Did I say that Clover Land was my favorite of these? I lied. It's Thunder Plains. Thunder Plains is like, what if Cloverland, but you actually could loop each of the things infinitely, and also there were switches that you could use to make properties more expensive to land on. I don't know. Normally, I would think that's not interesting to loop things interesting, but it works for Thunder Plains for some reason. I don't know why, but I really like Thunder Plains a lot. Every game I've played on it has been, like, amazing. It's just good. It's just really fun, and it looks cool. It's like a propeller slime. I don't think that's actually what it is. I'm pretty sure this is a dragon. This is a Final Fantasy board, but I don't know. I love Thunder Plains. It's so fun. Islands, not really important, but I don't know. I've had only amazing games on this board. Good shit. Tycoon Castle, boring. It's just a boring 15k board with like 3 segments, and one of them that's just clearly optimal to bank loop. Like, if you're doing bank loops, you do this loop. You don't do anything else. And I don't really like a board that has just one bank loop. You don't do anything else. Like, this probably should be C if I played more games on it. But like, I played multiple games on this, and they were all kind of boring. I mean, it's still Fortune Street. It's fine. It's still it's boring relative to Fortune Street games, which is still say interesting. But I don't have much to say about Tycoon Castle. Like, just take this bank loop once you get your properties, and even then, the really awkward thing about Tycoon Castle is that so many of the districts are like 5 and 6ers, and also a lot of expensive properties on it. For 15k, it's just awkward. I don't know. It's an awkward board. Yggdrasil is B. It's a good board. I like Yggdrasil. It's good. But Yggdrasil special, I don't know. It's got this weird thing where like these 2 bridges combine together when you hit the switch. Sounds interesting, but the problem is the bridges are almost never like separated. Whenever you have to pass through the bank bridge, you almost never get through it without having to go through like the long way when it stretches from here, down here, and over there. Like basically this moves to here, this moves over there. That's what the Switch does. It's not as interesting as it sounds like it is, because you rarely get to take the short path across, like, honestly, because the Switch gets hit a lot on this board. You can take the, there's, like, I forget what they're called, Hawkmen. They're called Hawkmen, the Dragon Quest enemies. Take you back and forth between the two, which is good, especially with the bank bridge. Problem is that those bank bridge properties are just, like, way too busted, especially the bank district itself is, like, super busted. Having a checkpoint on that bridge is just brutal. Like, you will, like, kill everybody if you have a checkpoint on that bridge. Because you have to pass it multiple times. It's really annoying. I don't know. It's a thing that it's a very interesting idea. It's a very interesting shaped board. I will always enjoy playing on it, but it's not as good as it looks like it would be. Zenithia. Deep. Honestly. This board seems really cool in concept. It's a really cool idea. Like, you can drop down from the top area to the bottom area. Like, these aren't islands. It's like you drop down from the top and the bottom, and there's switches that may force you to do it. It sounds really interesting. The problem is, this line of properties, absolutely useless. There's no reason to ever have them, unless you're just trying to find a place to invest. This island in the middle, pretty not interesting. Like, it's kind of interesting for a promotion loop that you can, like, go around and then drop down here if you make it past without getting forced down, which is actually pretty hard to happen. But it's not much you can do. You can't make this an island to kill people on, because you just home people here, they just go down. And also, when you go down, you're not forced to hit, like, the reason this line is shit, it's because you're not forced to pay rent on whatever property you land on. It's, like, not interesting. It just makes it boring. It makes it so that... It also, the other thing is that as you go down, there's just two things that bring you back to bank, but just means you can just make a bank loop by going right over here, then drop, over here, and back to bank in like 3 or 4 turns. And it's not interesting, especially because it's very easy for it not to be dangerous in at least one of the two paths. Like, very rarely will both paths be dangerous. So you just have really easy bank loops, for like, very easy. And, like, not in an interesting way, because, like, it makes every other space in the board completely irrelevant after, like, the mid-halfway point. Like, the halfway point of the game, once you're entering mid-late game, like, just the rest of the game. The rest of the board is useless, other than your bank loops. And just whatever properties you happen to buy. It's sports shit. Like, I feel like a lot of people would disagree with me on this, and say this board's actually, like, an A board. No, it's a gimmicky board, where the gimmick is just not good. It's not good. And also the switches get pressed, like, so often. So if you're trying to make your way to the middle for some reason, you're going to get pushed off, like, every time. It's just awful. It's not fun that, oopsies, I was on the bridge and I got pushed down by the switch. I wanted to get to the middle to get a property, but whoopsies, I can't now. And this is not interesting. Magmageddon, one of the best boards. Oh my god, Magmageddon is so fun every time I play it. If you don't know if I haven't played this board, the switches turn these 4 sections into islands, and when you press them, they go back together again. It's just really dynamic. It's a fun, dynamic board. You can play on most parts of the board. Like, the Bank District, you would think would be really powerful, especially because you could just loop it, but there being 3 portals next to Bank makes it not able to do, like, easy bank loops. Like, you can go to Bank pretty often, but, like, it's not free, because, like, you get warped random places if you try to do it a lot. That makes it interesting. There's the magmaluses that are like boats when they're separated, but only when they're separated. That's interesting. I don't know, Magmageddon's just fun. It's always dynamic. It's always fun. The games have played out in so many different ways whenever I've played it. I've had people try to do home strats on this board, which I don't recommend, but they're fun. They're fun because they're not overpowered. Where you try to home people and kill them is fun when they're not overpowered, which is the case with this game. I don't know. This board's always fun. It's good. Suits everywhere. There's so many different ways to try to get promotion. And I think this is 3 portals by bank. There's 3 portals by bank make this board. It kind of, like, changes a lot about it. That just makes it really good. Drodane Castle. This should have been... Oh, yeah, we are still in special, right? This is a 10k board. It's a basic 10k board. It's like the second standard. You're either a Shell Isle type board or you're a Drodane Castle. That's Alexandria. Shell Island, they're just the standard 10k. Don't have much to say about it. If you played Trojan Castle, you know how it plays. And if you played Wii, you probably played Trojan Castle once. It's basic. It's fine. It's not bad. It's not boring. It's fine. Yoshi's Island, again. Well, by the way, this is in the special section. Cause this is originally from Dr. G Special. It's called Golden Saucer. It's a Final Fantasy thing. But it was in Yoshi's Island and Wii. I'm going to call it Yoshi's Island. One of the best boards of the game. Easily the best introduction map. If I'm introducing someone to Fortune Street and what makes it so fun, I am showing them Yoshi's Island. Yoshi's Island is so fun. It's so interesting and really dynamic, and games play differently every time you play it. It is great. It is a great board. There's no board like Yoshi's Island. It is so good. The island is interesting and dynamic. Like, it's not just like, oops, I'm on island, I'm screwed. I don't know, there's something about Yoshi's Island island that plays so different. Partially because you can choose to go there. If you're like, man, I really haven't been able to get properties, I'm gonna go to island, and I can choose to go there. It's like the only board you can do that. That's awesome. It's fun. It's just so good. I love Yoshi's Island so much. It's unique, and it plays well, and the music's awesome. I love it. Alexandria, but from Portable. Oh, we're in the Portable maps now, by the way. Now that we finished Yoshi's Island, we're on the Portable 80 Dr. G Portable maps. PSP, also easily playable with the translation patch. Over Parsec. B, I think. Maybe I have this in A. I don't remember. I think it's an A board. It's interesting enough. It's like Tower of Alexandria, something like that is what it actually is. Yeah, I think I have this in A. I only play this once. It should not be a 25k board, first of all. It should be a 20k board because it's an 8-district board. It should be 25 or 20k default. With that in mind, it's fine. The switches are interesting. Like, you can, like Thunder Plains, you can hit switches that make properties more expensive. Like, except in Thunder Plains' case, it was like 30%, 50, 80, something like that. And Alexandria, it's just 100%. You hit the switch, that district is 100% more expensive until somebody lands on a once, in which case it goes away. That's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic to play around. You can also land on the switches to undo it. If you're like, man, that district's dangerous, I want to undo it. It's interesting. Each of these loops, they're not infinite loops. If you go in, you have to go back out. That's good for this type of board. This board, it's better that it does that. I don't know. It's just fun to go around. The warps are kind of weird, but it's fine. Warp's actually good most of the time, actually. It's just a fun dynamic board. Maybe if I played it more, I might put it in B instead of A, but I've only played it once. All Trades Abbey special, or portable, I mean. It's the third All Trades Abbey version. Boring. Really boring. Bottom of C for me. Just, it's boring. It's like easily the most boring board that isn't just outright bad. Like, it's so, I don't know. This is a board where too many options is a bad thing. Like, you can just choose to go anywhere you want. You don't have to really go anywhere other than through Bank District. Like, you can avoid a bunch of different areas. Just kind of go wherever you want to make your own promotion loop, which is sometimes fine, but it's not fine in this board. The island is also shit. It's a 4-district. It's a 6-space island with 2 portals and no suits and no question marks or anything. Arguably the most boring island, other than maybe Alfgard Wii. Actually, I think it's the same as Alfgard. No, Alfgard Wii at least had a question mark space on it, I believe. Or Alfgard 2. Don't play this board. It's boring. Maybe some people might like this board more than I do. I could easily see somebody actually really liking this board, but I played 2 games on it. They were both just, like, boring. Like, even for Itadaki Street, they were pretty boring. I still wouldn't C, because it's not, like, bad. There's nothing really that bad about it. Buherba. Hey, this is just Moonlight Cruise again. It's Moonlight Cruise, but instead of a bridge, you have compulsory bank visits. Like, literally, well, they're compulsory in Moonlight Cruise as well. Like, you have to pass bank, but I don't know, there's no bank bridge. I think that makes it more interesting to me, not having a bank bridge. It's just, like, 2 halves of the board. There's also, like, there are boats on the other board. There's Hawkmen here. Or not Hawkmen, they're airships, I believe. They're airships in this board. Same thing. They're boats. And, I don't know, it's interesting. It's a 2-half board that's interesting. The way that you actually play on the boats in this board are actually pretty interesting. Or the airships, I guess. I like this board a lot. I don't really have a lot to say about it. It's just a good 2F board. Gorgeous. I think it's called something else, like Aeolus Valley officially. It's called Gorgeous in the translation patch. So I'm calling it Gorgeous. Great board. Love it. Really fun board. I'm not even sure why, because like it's just kind of interesting. We have like the suits and all these halves, like all these little quadrant places. And to be fair, like with a lot of other boards, like the left area and the right area aren't that important for rent a lot of the time, but they're still like there. They're still interesting. Like they're not as bad as say like Cross. You still do go to these places eventually, like occasionally if you're like, maybe I could get promotion. I'm pretty close. Let me go to the side and get this suit and go to this area. But even then, I think what it's got like that Peach's Castle effect where like if you're trying to make bank loops, like the bank is an intersection where you have to go from bottom left to top right and then top right to bottom left, which in this case is interesting because there's more to the board than like beside where it's just like that's the whole board. So like you can do really fast bank loops, really fast, and that changes the way you play this board. But you have to go from one half to the other half and back and forth, and that changes things a lot. That also makes checkpoints really good on this board, particular, or even because checkpoints because you can choose your way at bank. Like you don't have to go from like bottom to like down to up. Like you can go from down to right, for example, just not down to left. You can't go from here to here. You can go from here to here or here to here, like down upwards or down right. I don't know, it's just an interesting board. I played it twice and they're both great games. It's one of the boards where, like, if you are playing with a group of people who are willing to do bank loops, then it's interesting. It's interesting to do bank loops in such a way that, because everybody can do it pretty easily. But you can also, like, control how expensive the properties are to make those bank loops a bit harder for everybody. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I like this board. Maybe if I played more of it, I might rank it lower because they might be a bit a bit much, the bank loops on this board, because they're really, really, really fast. But, for now, they're A+. I think I played 2 games on there. Kilika! Kilika's actually pretty alright compared to Beside, actually. I put it in C. It's still not that interesting as a 2-half board. Like, maybe it's B. Actually, do I have it? No, I still have it in C. Like, it's still, like, this is better Beside. It's like, what if we took Beside and made it better? They might even be called the same thing. I don't even know, but it basically plays identically. There's the fish. I think it's called Sin. The fish that goes around, and to the 2 halves of the board, or these 4 bridges, and like if they land there when there's a player there, you get sent to island, and the island's more interesting because all 4 suits are there. That immediately makes it more interesting than the other island. Plus, if you warp out of island, you go straight to bank. That's also more interesting. You might want to get Sin just to maybe get back to bank faster, potentially. Like, there's more reason on this, and there's also 2 districts on island. You might want to go there to try to actually get property. Actually, no, it's 1 district. It's 1 district, but it's a 6 district. It's 1 big district that you could play off of, because people do get sent to island involuntarily on this board, just because the fish gets you. I'm calling it the fish. The fish gets you sent to island, but you can get all the suits there, which means it's like you might actually want to be there sometimes. Also, another key thing is that you can loop the same half over and over again. You're not forced to go from left half to right half. That does make the board more interesting to me. Again, sometimes that's interesting, sometimes it's not. In this case, it's more interesting because Beside is just boring because it feels like you barely have any agency at all. And it's a big board. Kilika, on the other hand, I don't know, feels better to do it. It gives a bit more agency. Like, maybe it is worth not getting promotion in order to go backwards. Versus Beside is, you're getting promotion, fuck you. This board is like, well, I could go for promotion and keep going, and I'm still going to get stocks the same amount, or I could stay on the half because the other one side's more dangerous. I think there's actually a bit of choice in that here, especially because it's a bigger board. Like, it goes a bit longer. Like, choosing not to get promotion does kind of matter. So, like, it actually is a trade-off of, I don't want to go to this side, either because I want more properties here, or because these are too expensive, but I don't get promotion because of it. I think that's interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic. I like Kilika. Again, it might be B. I'm putting it C just because it still is, like, yeah. I think, nah, it's B. I'm gonna put it in B. Screw you, it's B. I've actually, the games I played in this were fine. This is B. I'm moving this up in my tier list. It's currently listed as C. I'm gonna move it up to B. There's, like, Kilika. I like it. That's fine. Lamia is B. It's the uterus map. That's the only thing I can see it as. It's fine. Fine board. Interesting. A lot of different ways you can move around the board. A lot of options with stuff. Bank loop isn't easy, but it does exist. It's maybe it's just the fact that the bank loop is only like this stuff makes it a bit less to me, but there's still a lot of stuff to do with this board. There's not a lot to say about it. It's just it's not it doesn't have a lot of interesting things to talk about. There's portals on each of the sides. Oh, there's also like property. There's like this property on each side where the top path meets the main path that are really overpowered. If you get vacants there, they're like really they're just busted as either tax offices or checkpoints. Checkpoints can be super busted if they don't get bought out by anybody. They're just really oppressive checkpoints. It's the thing. Library A, maybe even A plus. I don't know. What one of my friends has one of his favorite maps of all time, and I can see why. It's a fun, dynamic board. It's interesting. Like the rotating suit on the top makes it so that like it changes a lot about the board. The rotating suit on top, one of the most impactful rotating suits on like any board. It really changes the way the game is played. The fact that the bank is like down here, so it limits your options. So you can't like easily bank loop by like just going like down and back up and doing this. You can't do that because of the way the board is structured. If you're going down, you have to go either left or right. It makes it so you still can get banked relatively frequently, but like you can't loop it easily, which is, I don't know, interesting. It's just, I don't know, it's interesting how it plays. You never really know exactly which way you're going, I feel like. Your path changes all the time, whatever's optimal. Like, you might think you're going the right way, but like, no, I need to change my path. I need to go somewhere different. One of the boards where pathing actually kind of matters a lot, and how you choose which way to go matters a lot for this board, and that is interesting. It might be A+. Like, it honestly might be A+. Yeah, I'm gonna put an A+. There's another one I'm moving up. It's A+. Love this board. Opera. It's kind of it's a 2-half board, or it's a double board. It's not a 2-half board, it's a double board, like Nalbina Freeway, but, and it's kind of interesting, like, the switches change how these side paths connect, like, so this bridge to the left gets moved down to the bottom, this one on the right gets moved to the top when you hit the switches. Kind of interesting. It's also just not that interesting. It's a double board, it's fine, I don't have anything against it, I'm gonna have fun playing it, but, I still don't have a lot to say about it. I got a triple bankruptcy on this board, though it's not a board that actually benefits going for triple bankruptcy, especially because you could be forced to go back to bank. I just got really lucky the first time I played it, so that game was a wash in terms of ranking. Second game was fine. Like, there's a lot of fun things you can do, but it's not like anything special. It's a fine board. If I'm getting this board, it's gonna be fine. I spin a wheel to see what boards I get. If I get it, I'm not gonna complain about it, so it's fine. Tonical Castle. Do I have this in A? I think I have this in B. I have in B. Yeah, of course not A. Yeah. It's like, what if Shell Isle, but the bank actually has two properties or two spaces on both sides, so that makes it so that when you pass it, you can choose to go either way, left or right. It's still interesting. It's compulsory bank visits, which I think makes it more interesting than, say, Trodain. Actually, do I even have this higher than Trodain? What do I have Trodain in? I don't know. Trodain probably could also be C. Tonagol could also be C. Both of these are... I don't really know what I feel about either. These are, like, very basic. Yeah. I feel like it not being forced kind of makes it interesting. Just because, like, oh, you could avoid... If these are the properties you own, you could just avoid them. Just go the other way. As long as you don't roll 1 onto it. And if you roll 1 up and go the other way, then who cares? You're probably going to pass it anyway. So, I don't know. That makes it slightly less interesting to me. But compulsory, it's a 10k 2-half board. You can't really go that wrong with it. Train, really, really good. Oh my god, train is great. Oh my god. That car, it just moves back and forth so that each of these changes which is an island and which isn't an island. Really fun mechanic. What really makes this board, I think, it makes it so the bank loops aren't safe because when the cars are connected, like here, they're connected at this little bit right here. If you're coming from, like, the bottom and you're coming up here, you're forced onto the car. You're not allowed to, like, stay in the middle car. and that makes it so that your bank loops aren't safe. You have to be careful whether you choose to go left or right when you're going away from bank, because that car might suction you up into it, and then you can't do bank loops for a bit. I think that's interesting. It makes it a bit of a risk, and you have to think a lot more about which way to go. It's just a really good board. I think it's like 15k by default. It should probably be 20k because I think it's an 8-district board, but still good. Maybe an 18k. Great board, amazing, always a fun time. You're on a train. That's just amazing by itself. I think this is like Yggdrasil, but the portable version, or Tree of Life. I think it's supposed to be Yggdrasil, but it's not called that in the fan translation. Surprisingly good. I don't know why this board is good, but I've had 2 really good boards on it. It was fun. It's not like broken in any way. It's just because it's just, what if we made a horse and carriage? That's the board. It's a 2-half board, but the 2 halves are very different from each other. There's a rotating suit down here. That's very interesting how it works and how it plays in the game. It's good. I don't know. It's a bizarre shape, but it's bizarre enough that it still works and is very dynamic in how it plays out. Like, I don't know. It's good. What do I say about it? It's a horse and carriage. It's kind of good. Alright, now we're on to the mobile games. Did you know that there are mobile Fortune Street games? Did you know that there was a game that was for just, like, flip phone? I don't know if it's flip phones, but it was, like, pre-smartphone? Yeah, this exists. Fortune Street, Mobile, I think it's called. Fortune Street Mobile. And it had these 3 boards that weren't in any games before. Also, oh, I forgot to put this one should be here. Colossus, we're still talking about portable. Colossus from Wii is also on portable. A+ board. Amazing. Great time. Is it A+? Yeah, it's A+. This board's iconic, dude. Colossus is iconic. It's fun. The switches that move the 2 islands. The fact that you have 2 islands that both have all 4 suits. You pretty much always want to be an island in these 2 games, and you can generally get there. It's great. Love it. Bit of a no man's land on the bottom. Kind of boring. But otherwise, great board. Love this. You can do bank loops, but like it's never safe because there's a lot of spaces on your way through your bank loop. I think like 3.5 districts, I guess. Yeah, it's more like 3 districts, but there's a lot of spaces, so it's slow. Having a slow bank loop kind of matters. It makes balloon ports kind of good if you can get them. It makes island interesting because you can even if you get sent to island, it's like, well, whatever, I'm gonna get promotion, that'll be good. But then you get stuck there, and it's kind of interesting. But it's not like the worst thing to get stuck in that island. Like, it never happens for like a lot. And it does sometimes, but I don't know. I would say easily the best islands in Fortune Street are the Colossus Islands. Like, extremely easily the best islands, unless you count, like, Magnageddon. Really fun. Love this Colossus. It's iconic. This is an iconic board. I don't know if it's iconic to most people, but it's iconic to me. Alright, now we're on to the Fortune Street mobile games. These 3 boards were introduced in the mobile game. 2 of them were in the later smartphone version, which you might actually know of, but one of them isn't. Let's go over the one that isn't. School. I don't know how to play this board. Technically, I haven't played this board properly yet. I think I put it in B. If I have it in A in my actual list, I should probably move it to B, yeah. So when I played this board, I ported this myself, but we didn't have any information about it. We really just only had the shape of the board. So, I took liberties on what I assumed the board would let you do, which I assumed you would not be able to do bank loops here. You would have to be suctioned off into the side parts. But that's actually not true. We figured out just by somebody making like a blog post that you actually can bank loop. So that changes things. It's probably C with that. Maybe it's B. I feel like bank loops on this board is bad. Because they're so short. They're so short bank loops. And you can take either left or right. Like, you're not forced into one. Like, you could go either side. Like, there's nothing that would stop you from, like, just doing this tiny loop over and over and over again for once you're in the mid-game. That's boring. It's not... That's a super small bank loop. I don't know. This could be B or C, but when I played the board, it had suctioned off. And when it was suctioned off, when I say suctioned off, it basically, when you're coming from here, you have to go down to this island, basically. Or the left and right paths. I don't know. it was a bit long. It was a long and arduous game. The islands existed and were weird, and you could get screwed out of like loops and stuff. I don't know. I feel like it's probably C. Might even be C both ways. I don't know. This is B or C. I haven't like I played this board, but because of the rule changes, we haven't played the real version of this board, so it could be different. I made wrong assumptions by the way the board should be played, but I feel like I'm still right. I feel like it'd probably be better that way anyway. Island is weird. It's a really weird island because it has 4 warps, but no suits. What? What? Four warps and no suits? What is this island? I don't understand this board. I'm gonna put it in B. It's probably fine. Okay, now these two are both in the smartphone version. So if you have the smartphone version, which we'll get to, these are in it. And by the way, this came out before a DS, so they come next. Festival is A. Fun board. It's a weird 2-half board where technically, yeah, you kind of only care about the bank districts, but you have to go back and forth between the bank districts. You can't infinitely loop the top half or infinitely loop the bottom half, which, as I said before, is always good for bank loops. They're fast bank loops, but you have to go back and forth. The left and right areas provide a bunch of properties to go to. Because they're a lot bigger, it actually makes owning those properties a bit better. And there's like warps, I think. I don't remember. They're cut off. But I don't know. It's a good board. It's a basic thing. I don't really have more to say, and I should probably be stopping talking less about each board anyway. Good board. It's basic, but it works. Festival. And then Silk Road. Silk Road is also A. Bizarre board. So like these 3 intersections in the middle are fake. So like you have to go through left, right. You have to go through top, down. I don't really know how to describe this board. It just plays kind of. It kind of plays basically. Like it's a very basic board. A bit of like a long stretch of like going from this sleep space to the bank is all one path. It's not a lot of properties. It's like 8, but also once you go through bank, you have to keep going through here. So you get both spade and club. It's kind of annoying when you're in the late stage of the game when you're trying to actually get. If you're like getting for promotion means you're actually choosing not to go to bank that often, but you do still pass bank on the way there, so. It's not nothing, like, it's still there, but also, like, it feels way more better just to do a fast bank loop, like, just go through, like, bank and do this left part, or bank and do this right part. I don't know, it's still kind of interesting, though. I don't know, but there's still that's still a dynamic to the board that makes it interesting, like, choosing what to do. Like, you have to commit to getting the spade and the club, but it's fine. Like, this board, it's really good. I now did the DS boards. I eat a Doctor DS. First one, Mario. Alifgard again. Also not that good. This one doesn't look like Alifgard though, but it is an Alifgard map. It's a weird, like, if we look at the mainland, it's just like a weird basic map that has like 2 sections with all the suits. Alright, but the weird thing with this board, I used to put this, I think, in A. I thought it was fine. I think it's still probably a pretty fine board. I probably could put it in B, but God, these islands are oppressive. They're really oppressive. Like, it's hard to get off island. It's very hard to get off island if you get there. And almost, pretty much every game, we've either been home to island or we got card warped onto island. It's very easy to get card warped onto island because, like, there's so many cards on island that like somebody could get everybody warped to somebody's space and now everyone's stuck on island and that takes up like 20 turns of the game or like 10 turns of the game and it's just really obnoxious. If it didn't have those islands it would be alright, I guess. It's still an interesting board. I could probably easily put it in B, but those islands are extremely toxic. They're degenerate. Even if you're not purposely trying to. I haven't had anyone home to an island here yet and I feel like it'd be overpowered if they did. So, yeah. Colossus DS. This is unique from the other Colossus, but it's also very good. It's once again a board where you could do bank loops, but you're forced to go from one side to the other, which is good. There's also you could do this bank loop, or like this arm to this arm bank loop, or other. It's unique stuff with how you go around the board once you're in the late game. It's an interesting shape. In of itself, you got an island with all 4 suits. That's always interesting. It's just overall kind of interesting. Just it's an interesting shape. It plays out interestingly and dynamically. It's good. Good board. Not much else to say about it. Delfino Plaza DS. It's a heart. Uh, it's okay. It's fine board. A bit of a long trek to the bank. And also a deceptively long path between these two because they're not diagonally connected. But you got arms up here with these. It's fine. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's just like look at it. I feel like if you look at this board, like when you actually play it, you can kind of just feel it's Delfino Plaza DS. I played it like twice, and it's fine. Fine. Don't know much to say about it really. It's okay. You can't bank loop very easily, so it's a bit less interesting because there's like no real way to bank loop in this board, other than owning balloon ports. You should own balloon ports most of the time you're playing this game, but you know. Peach's Castle DS is very interesting. So it's a 2-half board with islands, but the switches make it so that this left part becomes a whole quadrant, and this right part becomes a whole half. Like, it becomes 2 halves with, where there's 2 suits on the left, 2 suits on the right, basic 2-half board. But then when the switches get pressed, it becomes a double board, where all 4 suits are on the same side. It becomes kind of a bit like Aleph when it's in the changed state. But more interesting because of the switches and the fact it does change, and they become islands, and there's warps and stuff. I don't know, it's interesting. It's a fun board that plays interestingly, and there's not really another board like it. This is one of the more interesting Switch-based boards. Speaking of interesting Switch-based boards, Robin Hood Ruins DS. Robin Hood Ruins DS. I don't know, it's interesting. So what happens is, see how that middle part's an island? Well, this part up here is also an island, like from here. But like this part of the bank part of the board moves up and down between the two, which changes which part is an island and which is an island. It's kind of like Train. It's very similar to Train, but it's not Train. The one thing you can't bank loop on this board. You do have to make a bit of a commitment to go to bank, but you generally do want to go to bank on this board. It's a smaller board, like I think it's 15, I don't know if it's 15, it might be 16k, default goal. It's just kind of interesting, the 2 islands, the way it plays, that they do switch pretty frequently, so it's not as frequent as like the train cars and Train, but they do move around a lot. Both islands have the suits you need, same as Train, or between them. It's interesting. Good board. I really don't know how to describe this. It's fun. It's kind of fun. Sorry about that. Yoshi's Island DS, bad. This is potentially even. Is this I think this is an F board. No, it's not an F board. It could be. It could be an F board. Probably D board, though. I've had an interesting game on it, so it's still fine. But, like, it's boring. Like, what if you had a board that you cannot pass the bank without promotion, like, ever, for any reason, and also, like, you just have to go through the entire board? It's like, what if we took a 2-half board, like Alexandria or Shell Island, but instead of putting the bank in the middle, we put it at the end of one of the 2? That sure sounds interesting. It's not. It's not interesting. You can't bank loop. Like, this spade, you're forced downwards when you go around. I don't think that you can't bank loop is not interesting, but it's like, the thing that makes Shell Isle and Alexandria and Tantagal at least interesting in comparison, and Trodane's not much, but like what makes these interesting is that they're compulsory bank visits. You have to go to bank like twice per promotion loop. Or in Trodane's case, you can choose to go to bank in between if you wanted to, and if it's a good choice to do so. In Yoshi's, you can't. You just good promotion and you're back at bank. and it's small. Like that's maybe fine, a bit more fine on the bigger boards, but on a small board like this, that's so boring. It makes it feel like you really have no agency in the game. Like the difference is you get more agency when you can choose to buy stocks more often. Or even like in Albina's case, like the stocks you choose matter more. So you actually have to put thought into what stocks you buy because you don't buy them very often. The difference is not that you don't buy them often because it's a small board. It's just that like it's not often enough. I don't know. It's just not good. It's very not fun. I mean, again, I've had a good game on it once. It was pretty close, but Ghost Ship. Maybe it's unpopular opinion. I'm not as big on this board as some others. I mean, one of my friends, he said it was one of his favorite boards of all time. I don't agree with that. It's fine. Good board. Ghost Ship. I don't know. I think it's the fact that for each of these loops, like on the right and left side, you can choose, like I've said before, you can choose to ignore the properties after each intersection. And so like when you're forced to pass at least one of the two, like loops like this, and you can just ignore one, sometimes not always that interesting. Sometimes it's fine, like Colossus, because like with Colossus DS, right? Like at least there's more to it than the branches. Like there's more to the board than like, oh, I get to avoid that property. There's more to it. Like those properties aren't as powerful, but at least there's like more to the board. There isn't really much more to Ghost Ship than that. Like it's just 3 sections you go between. You have to. It's also a thing where you basically. And it's a bit like it's kind of like Yoshi's Island DS. I know I was just complaining about it. Like you basically just get bank very rarely. This one feels a bit better, maybe because it's a 12K instead of a 10K. It's like 6 districts instead of 5 districts. But like I don't know, maybe in the fact there's more intersections. There's a bit of play on. Ooh, maybe I don't get heart this promotion loop or this loop around the board. Maybe I don't. Maybe I put balloon ports on one of these two so that I have 2 chances of hitting it per. It makes, balloon ports kind of a bit more interesting, where they're not really that interesting on Yoshi's Island. I don't know, something makes it a bit more interesting, but it's fine. It's a fine board. Mario Circuit, yet again, another S board. Yeah, and if you haven't told, there's a lot of S boards that are in Wii, even though we're still on the boards that originate in DS right now. Mario Circuit, goated shit. So good. Oh my god, it's like the most asymmetric board. Like, hold up. It's so weird as a shape because like there's always some amount of like not always symmetry, but like different halves and different parts and different pieces. Meanwhile, every single part of Mario Circuit is like completely different from itself. Like to the point where you could like tier the districts. Let me like quickly. I won't be able to do this in Chrome very easily. But like if I'm zooming in here a bit. Mario Circuit, there's 7 districts, and you could rank them. Like, I don't think you could do this with any other board, but you can legitimately rank all the districts just within Mario Circuit. Like, pink is A probably, blue is, or like, this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. Maybe switch 5 and 6. Either way, like there's a lot of ways to think about the board. And even then, the bank districts, like I don't know. It's one of I would argue the most dynamic board. Every game plays so differently because it's just a weird board. It's very weird because again, a complete asymmetry to it. But it's just so fun. I love Mario Circuit. It's just always a blast every time. It's great. Another board where you could do bank loops where you have to go back and forth between the two. Like, the top section's still not bad, though. There's still a lot of reason to go there because it's not that long and you can get both your suits and you get easier promotion. It's a board that you can do bank loops, but they're not, like, super easy to do bank loops, and there's a lot of encouraging you to not just do bank loops. I don't know. Great. Mario Stadium. Unpopular opinion. I don't like Mario Stadium. I have played it several times. They've never been interesting games. I don't like Mario Stadium. Some people push this as like the easy, like, oh, get to know Fortune Street board, where it's a bit like more interesting than Trodane Castle. Like Trodane Castle is really boring in its shape, but it's still a fine board. This board is a bit more interesting in shape. It's a baseball diamond, ooh, but it's just not interesting. I don't know, like a bit too long to go through bank with a board this small. In fact, you're fourths on each like half. I don't know. There's nothing that's inherently that wrong about it. Like on paper, it just doesn't play interestingly. It just doesn't. It doesn't play interesting anytime I play it. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Not much else to say about it. I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but I don't like Mario's baseball. Slimania, B, no C. I don't like. I talked about this earlier when I talked about Gertrude. It's the bank district. It's entirely the bank path. There's like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Like 13 spaces in the bank bridge. Like for a 2-half board, making your diversion to bank being 13 spaces makes it so that you're basically never incentivized to do it unless you have promotion. Like you should be incentivized to go to bank sometimes. Like to make bank loops of some kind. Like again, I think there's times where bank loops are too powerful, like school. School is like way too powerful. You can just loop this tiny bit over and over again, but you should be able to do some type of bank loops, and I feel like it's completely not encouraged in this board. Makes it kind of boring. The island is also completely not interesting. There's all 4 suits, I guess, but you don't really go there ever in the game very often, and the properties aren't particularly useful, especially because you're never forcing one of them. Because of the fact there's 2 spaces in the middle, you're always allowed to choose whether to go up or down at each eye on the island, so not that interesting. Probably an unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people like this map, but I don't. I don't find it interesting. Mario Bros. M. Another S tier board. Oh my god. Mario Bros. Or Mushroom Kingdom and DS, but it's called Super Mario Bros. And Wii. So good. Oh my god. So good. It's just fun. It's a thing where, again, you can... Well, it's just shaped like an M. That inherently just makes it better. I'm just going to say it. The boards that have shapes just make them better because they're shapes, and I love that. But also, like, I don't know. I have basic taste. I have monkey brain. I like shape. I go around the letter M. Wow. But also, like, again, when you do bank loops, you can do bank loops. They're not that long. They're not like super long bank loops, relatively. Like 2.5 districts. Actually, it's more like 3 when you count number of spaces, but still, like, not that big. You can do bank loops pretty easily, but you have to go back and forth between them. Have to go back and forth between the districts. If you make a checkpoint next to bank, they're super powerful, and that makes it more risky to do bank loops. And it's interesting. I just love this board. A bit of a no man's land up top, but unlike a lot of other boards with no man's lands like Colossus, like in Colossus is great. Those bottom districts usually don't matter unless the AI... Actually, no, they matter. People get those properties and can use them as much. But, like, they don't really matter a lot. They're a lot less important than everything else on the board. Meanwhile, I would argue they don't feel that less important than anywhere else. It feels like wherever you get a district on the M board, you can work with it. Even if you get those top 2. You can still easily work with those districts. Pretty easily. It's just always fun. It's a dynamic board. Alright, now we're on to the Wii boards. I know we just talked a bunch about the Wii boards, but there's only 3 boards that were introduced for the Wii version. I know, right? Let's talk about those 3. Delfino Plaza DS. Cloverland, but not as good. It's just Cloverland again. But it's smaller, and there's cannons. The cannons are interesting, I'll give you that. Cannons do make this board more interesting, and it being smaller, I don't know, I feel like the 3 bank visits per loop worked fine for Cloverland because it was bigger. It being smaller makes it feel like the bank visits are a lot less impactful. They don't really matter as much. You can just get bank way too quickly, basically. And it's fine. Like, it's still fine. Fine board, still B. But, yeah. Observatory, A. Easy A. Fun board, really cool. Like, that island that goes back and forth from the left to the top to the right, and then it just becomes an actual island on the bottom. Really fun mechanic. Really cool. There's a lot of ways to go around. Stuff to do. I feel like you kind of can make easy bank loops, but I don't know. At least whenever I played, never was too big a deal. If I played it more, I might move it down to B. Actually, no, I do have it down in B. That's right. I think that's what I do have it in. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, but I don't know. This is probably also been unpopular. I feel like a lot of people probably put it in A, but I don't really think that it's still fun. It's a good mechanic. Yeah, no, it's A. It definitely deserves to be A. I might move it down to B if I played more of it because the bank loops might be a bit too easy. But, I don't know, the island mechanics are super fun. I like it. It's fun. Are you ready for an F, boys? Starship Mario. I'm gonna be honest with you. The fact that this is a cylinder map with, like, the weird Wii cylinder mechanics makes this map worse. This would be a D map without it, but it's an F map because of it. Not that it's, like, that bad, but, like, it's just annoying. Like, fundamentally, it's just like Yoshi's Island DS, except the bank is on the longer of the two loops. And you technically can do bank loops by just ignoring this part, I guess. It's just not interesting. It would be a D board if it actually were just, like, shaped, like, horizontally. There was just two halves and then an island. It would be D. Still not that interesting. But the cylinder, because it makes it so you can't actually see what all the properties cost above you. You, like, have to scroll above to actually see what the properties are that you're going to if you're walking upwards. It's annoying. And it just looks weird. The island is useless. You can't infinitely loop this, and I feel like it would be better if you could. In this case, just because there's not a lot to do in this board. You can, because you can infinitely loop the right part. Like, if you consider this a circle, which is what it basically is, you can infinitely loop that, but you can't infinitely loop on the left. That's, I don't know. I feel like if you had, like, bloom ports here, it would actually make it kind of interesting. It's just not interesting. It's boring. It's a very boring map. The island is useless. There's no suits there. Like, come on. Even if there were, I don't even think that would be important. I don't know. Antarctica. We're on to the... by the way, yeah, and that's all of the Wii boards. Now we're on to Itadaki Street Smart. The smartphone game. Again, all these are on the Wii version. Like, they've all been ported. A lot of them by me. A lot of the mobile ones. And these... some by Masculine as well. Antarctica. Fine. Fine. It's Tycoon, but better. It's Tycoon, but better. Where the weird thing is there's only... you like Tycoon. High property districts. The Antarctica has only one district with 4 properties. There's like 4 5s and a 6. 6 district, 15k board. I think it's actually the full 20k, but you should play this as a 15k board because it's 6 districts. Maybe 16k. I don't know. But it's fine. It's fine. You can do really easy bank loops, like by choosing whichever corner you like the most. Again, it's kind of fine though because everybody can do it in this case, and it's not short. They're not short bank loops. They're all easy bank loops. I think they're different. They're both short and easy, like school. I kind of have more of a problem with that. I'm moving this to C. Should we see? I need more. It's C. But like, I don't know. It's still interesting enough. Like the fact that you can basically choose which loop you like best, and even then, you might still sometimes start deviating outwards for different reasons, and still make your bank loops fine. Going around the circle. I don't know. It's interesting enough. Not really much else to say about Antarctica. It's kind of okay. Aquarium. Aquarium. The board's in an aquarium with 2 fish. I don't know, dude. I like it because it's 2 fish. It'd probably be C otherwise. It's an odd board. It's weird. Like like if you're taking like the bottom fish, this also the bank as well are both fake intersections, I think. Like the bank and like the part between the bodies and the tails are fake intersections. Like you're always forced through, which is weird. There's like a spade on both sides. Actually, I think that's a rotating suit, not a spade. I originally thought it was a spade, but it's actually rotating, I think. I don't remember. I don't remember what it... I know I made a mistake when I first ported this board and it was fixed. But like, God, I don't remember. I don't even remember if I played the right way. But it's a bizarre board to play. It just doesn't feel like it plays right. It feels so odd. Like, maybe it's C, but it's still interesting enough to be B. Like, it'll be, like, an interesting game. I feel like I need to play this more to, like, really get an experience on how it actually plays. Like, how it should play over multiple games. Because one game, it just felt weird to play. It isn't B, though, just because, like, it's fine. I'll enjoy it enough. It's Fortune Street. Monster House. A? B? I think this is a B. I put this in A originally. It's either A or B. Let's put an A. It's a default 30k board. That's a choice, but that's the only one. But I'm gonna play this 25k. 30k Stool Hung a Fortune Street game for me. Kind of interesting. Like you're forced from left half from like bottom. It's like a 2 double board type thing where there's 4 suits on both sides. There's islands with suits on them. It's just kind of awkward though sometimes. I don't know. It's still interesting. I don't know. This is B. This is not an A board. It's the parts next to bank are like these mini parts are way better than the outside parts from the one game I played on. Maybe if I played it more, I would realize that the outside parts are actually better. But no, these inside parts felt way too powerful, way too centralizing. Islands were weird, I guess. But like owning like checkpoints or like tax offices or balloon ports in these areas felt like too much. There's interesting stuff with the ones by bank, but the ones on the outside are just not interesting. Not really worth doing. I feel like if you're a human, the AI goes to them, I guess. I don't know. I need to play this board more as well. I've only played it once. It's alright, I guess. Zodiac plus A. I think I have it an A plus right now. Let's do an A plus. It is interesting. It's a 4-quadrant board where you go through bank, but there's also like boats, which are actually like spaceships in the mobile version, that take you from like these two to each other, or like from these two and then from these two to each other, something like that. And it's interesting enough. The big problem with this board, though, and maybe, but I say problem, but it also does make it kind of interesting. Like Bowser's Castle, you're kind of strapped for cash. Your promotion loop is long. This is a 12-district board. 12 districts, and even with boats, like you still take a while to get all your stuff for your first promotion and your second promotion. You're really tight on cash for a while. So, getting those boats is very important. But you can also loop infinitely, which it's a trap. Like, don't try to loop infinitely at the start of the game, even if it gets you like, properties and stuff. You should still loop. You shouldn't loop infinitely at the start of the game. Probably. I'll probably do it anyway the next time I play the game, but because it's just you're so low on money, you will be strapped for cash before, and you only have like 3 suits, and you need to get to the 4th area. You have to pay rent and auction a property in your first promotion loop. I mean, it's kind of suffocating in a way, like Bowser's Castle, though less suffocating. It's so fun though. It's a fun dynamic, especially once you get past the early game. It has a very interesting mid game. Like this board has a very interesting mid game, more than a lot of other boards, and it's just fun. Like the boats are really dynamic, changes the way the board plays a lot. Going for promotions is very important because you're so strapped for cash. There's a lot of properties, so a lot of places to invest in. This is still a default 20k board, despite being 12 districts. It should be probably. That's fine. It should be 20k. And that kind of does open up what you can do. It opens up a lot more options as a 20k board, like, which you'll probably be able to have at least one district you can work with no matter what. And that's usually what you need for a 20k board, is at least one, probably two. I don't know, it's good. Bunnyland. A. This is a good board. It's kind of like, it's like the Mario Bros. M, like with this, except a mass. Okay, it kind of feels. It's not really that much like Mario Bros. M. It feels like it because of this massive no man's land, like easily the biggest no man's land in the series. That being said, there's not enough bank districts to feel like you can just win the game staying like only having bank stuff, unless you get really lucky. But like this game, the mid game, you really stop going for promotions early because this is one suit and you have to go all the way through 16 different properties to get it. It's really oppressive to get that big no man's land. But it's interesting. It actually does make a fun dynamic for this board, because sometimes it's worth doing it. Either that or for properties, because these properties don't feel like useless, despite being a no man's land. Like, they do actually are fairly important, because you could get one of them. Like, just getting one of those 4 is a district you can work with, as long as you have enough bank districts to like land on investment properties, or get enough stocks, and then eventually make your way into the no man's land to get your investment spaces. It's good. Interesting board. Alright, we are on to the... actually, no, we're not PS4 yet. These should move back. This is a game that definitely almost nobody's heard of, even if you know what Fortune Street is. It's not even listed on the US Wikipedia page. Itadaki Street for AU. This is another mobile phone game, not made by Square Enix, made by some random mobile game developer, at least in Japan, with like events and stuff, and like weird tie-ins and crossovers, and it's like not available at all anymore, as far as I'm aware. Itadaki Street for AU. I don't even know what AU is, but there are 6 boards that were introduced, and these look really weird. We'll get to them. Let's do this one up a bit. Okay. Start with this board. Just looks like the Japan board, right? It's All Trades Abbey Wii, which is the Japan. It's this what is it? Glorious Specialty. It's a distinct board. It actually plays significantly differently. Well, not significantly, but it plays differently. What is this? An A board, I think. Put this in B. Yeah, this is a B board. It's not really any better or worse than All Trades Abbey Wii. Like, it plays very similarly. The weird thing is, there's only one island on the left. I think those are supposed to be rotating seats. We don't know a lot about this game. It's not available, but there are images of the maps online that we used to make these. That I made all 6 of these and ported them into the Wii version. This isn't an island up here. This is just an area where you just go up like that, and you just go through it. The weird thing that makes this map... Oh, by the way, all the maps in this version are just bizarre and, like, do not feel like official maps. They're so weird. They're technically official. But not by Square Enix, obviously. Because, like, there is more than one district with 7 properties. There is more than one district with 7 properties. Like... The way that this image here of the screenshot on Wii does not do this justice, because like the way the districts are laid out is so weird, bizarre, but it kind of makes it interesting. There's multiple 7 property. I think there's either 2 or 3 of them that have 7 properties in them, which is what, and they're on the mainland. They're not. That's not even the island. The island is like a double 4 district, I think. Like, two 4-property districts on the island. It's just like All Trades Abbey, but weirder. Like, I don't have any strong feelings for or against it compared to All Trades Abbey. But it sure is All Trades Abbey. Oh, did I put an A? I meant to put an B. It exists. It's bizarre. And it's the first of the introduction for AU boards. Midnight Town. Do I have this in C? I have in C. This is a bizarre board. I feel like this might even be D. I don't know. I played it once and I don't want to play it again. This is D. This is like Freeway. This map is basically just a less bad Freeway, but in many ways it's a worse Freeway. There's not the shitty warps. That just inherently makes it better than Freeway because of the warps. But it's so... Technically, okay. To be fair, I have no idea how the intersections are supposed to work, because we don't have any video footage of this game, we just have screenshots of the maps. But my interpretation of this is that all these intersections are fake. That's the version of this map that makes the most sense to me. So all the intersections are fake. You only go around forest, and there's basically no intersections. So it's a 2-half board, but this is a 2-half board because there's only 2 suits on each half, so you do pass bank twice. It is essentially just a 2-half board, but oh my god, the properties are expensive. Like, one of the districts has a base 22 stock price. Like, it's insane. Like, I don't think there's a district cheaper than 11. Or I don't even think cheaper than 12. I don't know. This board's insane. It's ridiculously expensive and you have no agency. It's either C or D. It might even be C, just because it's kind of interesting. It doesn't have the warps that makes Freeway shit, but I don't know. It exists. It's a map. You may be like, oh, aren't these the same map? No, you can even tell if you look closely. Like, oops. These are not the same map. This one has the suits at the fake intersections instead of at the corners, which turns into a board where each half, you get a promotion every time you pass bank, which makes it better. Not by a lot. Whether what was this one? This was Midnight Town. This is Sergeant Frog, which, by the way, I didn't mention. This map is in crossover with the anime/manga Sergeant Frog. I don't even know if it's a manga, but at least the anime. Sergeant Frog. It exists. It's based on Sergeant Frog. This map is, we call it Sergeant Frog. It's okay. You get promotions really quickly. So it means you get a lot of money really quick. You generally can always buy the stocks you need. That's kind of interesting, just because you get quick promotion loops. It somehow, despite having the exact same stage layout, like literally the spaces are laid out the same way. It's just which properties are which spaces are which are different between the two. But like, they play extremely differently. This is fine. Like, I'd be fine playing this board, but like, why does this board exist? This does not have a design philosophy. Also, I don't even think this board was designed to be played multiplayer. I think that it was just for like an event where you have to beat the AI or something, and like, that's it. But we found screenshots of it, so I made it into a board, and you can play it on the Wii version in Custom Street World Tour. Play it. Anyway, here's another one like that. This is based on the anime Nanako's Buried Treasure. So I think that's the anime, I think. This board's actually pretty good. This is honestly a better All Trades Abbey. You can kind of tell if you look at it. It has those 3 segments and an island. But or better All Trades Abbey Wii, to be specific, the Japan board. It plays similarly to it, but Island has all 4 suits, and it's only 1 island, and that's more interesting. There's a lot of warps to Island, and that kind of can screw some stuff over, but also it makes it kind of dynamic. Like, you get warped to Island a lot, so that does kind of make the game a bit chaotic, but it's one of those boards that's kind of chaotic and fun. Especially because you can still go to suits, so you're never like too fucked, you know. It's a fun board. I don't know. It's also more. Well, technically it didn't have a goal because it wasn't probably made to be played multiplayer because it was like a limited time board. But it plays. It's easily playable. It's multiplayer and the Wii version because I ported it. It's fine. It's a fine board. I like it fine. I would say it's just better All Trades Abbey Wii. Yeah. Okay, now we have the light maps. These were technically designed to be played for 5K board games, like 5,000 gold. But we're playing for 10K because they're 5 district boards, and that's what I'm ranking them as. Also, you can't set it to 5K. Well, I think you can by the default, but for the modding, but you can't like choose to put 5K if it isn't set that way. Anyway, Cloverland Light. Welcome to another F board. This is these are technically it's not Cloverland Light. It's called like More Heart Light because of what the board is in the AU version. Like that board's also ported in here. Cloverland, and this is the light version of it, so we just call it Cloverland Light instead. And it's very bad. Like what? Remember when I said it was very inconsequential that you pass bank 3 times in Delfino Plaza because like the board's so small? What if we literally removed every space from Delfino Plaza except for the suits? There is a bank, 4 suits, and 5 districts with 4 properties in them. What the fuck? And one of those properties is worth like 900. Like what? If I remember right. It's actually just not fun. It is a fucking another suffocating map because it's like your bank lands are so inconsequential. They're so meaningless. Things are actually like kind of expensive despite everything. It's not fun. It's just like it suffocates not because of like expensive properties and everything, but because like shit, I'm passing bank again. What am I supposed to do? Nothing again? Cool. It's not fun. I never want to play this board again. Shell Island Light. This is basically Shell Isle because again, it's not that. It's some desert map in the AU version, but the light version is they added suits to both sides. It's fine, I guess. So you get really quick promotions because you get all 4 suits going both ways. Cool, I guess. Do I have this in B or C? This is in C, right? Shell. No, I have this in D. Yeah, that's right. This map's boring. I forgot. This map's boring. It's just not interesting. Like, you get promotions so frequently. It's like, what if we took Sergeant Frog, which is still pretty quick promotions, but it's not, like, super quick. Like, you still have to pass, like, good half the board, which is, like, I don't know, 4 districts, maybe? 4 districts worth of properties, maybe 3 districts. I think it's 3. I think it's actually a 6 district board. But now it's just it's like 2.5 districts. Like, I don't know. Like, it's something changes with that. It's just not as interesting. It exists, but it feels like you're kind of just playing the game, and whoever gets what they get. You can always buy stocks wherever you want, really. You're always getting promotion. You're not moving anywhere. It's alright. It's not that good. It's just boring. It's really boring. It's boring enough that I don't really ever want to play it. Alright, and now we're on to the PS4 maps. Alright, I need to make actually, no, before that, two more things to mention with AU. First of all, this last tab here. This is a board that exists in the AU version, but we cannot port to Wii. It is basically Japong, like the space layout is identical to Japong. The islands are different. I don't think there's any passing stockbrokers. And, like, I don't know, it's different. It's weird. Like, the islands are different, even though and also the specific spaces on the mainland are different as well. This is just a variant of Japong, though. It's not exactly Japong. Like, there's a lot of boards that have been ported over the years, but this is not an exact port. And it's less than Glorious Specialty, the Japan one, but it's still a thing that exists. I want to acknowledge it, but I've never played it because it's not portable to Wii, and I don't know, it's weird. If eventually we learn how to port the PS2 version, maybe I'll add this. I doubt that will ever how to mod it, but I doubt that'll ever happen. There's also, okay, one other thing I didn't mention also. Ghost Ship has technically an alternate version on the DS, where instead of being, in the Wii version, it's top area is a district, bottom area is a district. The DS version, it's like the left for our district and the right for our district. Technically different. I've not played that version because I don't care enough to do that, but I should probably mod that to Wii at some point. Anyway. Alright, and then speaking of which, this board and this board are not playable on Wii. They have very special mechanics. This one, the board rotates and turns every 3 turns. Like, every three turns of the game, the board changes. And that looks really fun. That sounds like a really, really interesting board, and I'd love to play it. But there's nothing in the Wii version that actually keeps track of what turns you are and actually changes anything. There's no way to take the turn count and turn that into a mechanic for the game in the Wii version. So it's not portable, and you can't mod, or you can't emulate PS4 that way. Technically it's also Vita. Maybe when Vita gets emulated better, I can play that and rate it. This one as well has this weird car mechanic where you can ride a car that goes like around the board to different places. Also sounds very interesting. Might not be that interesting though. I don't know. I really want to play it, but both of these two I cannot play at all. Crystal Tower. Crystal Tower. This is Trodane Castle, but with 2 stockbroker spaces? They're landing stockbrokers, not passing, but I don't know. That's really interesting. I played one game on this, and it was like the best game I've ever played in my life. Like, one of the best games we played. It was so close between the two of us. Kind of insane. I think I won this game at level 2. Like, that's the earliest one I've ever done. Because the stockbroker spaces. I don't know. Maybe this should be B. It shouldn't be that much better than Trodane Castle, but those stockbrokers are interesting. It's like, oh yeah, and there's 2 dice. There's 2 dice spaces and 2 stockbroker spaces. Like, what the hell? There's no sleep or casino or anything. What? That's wild. It's basic enough that it is in the Wii version. I ported it. I liked it. It was fun. It probably should be B. It should probably be B, but I've played it once and it was a fucking amazing game, so it's A for now. It's my tier list. Fuck you. And Dragon Lord's Castle, final one to talk about. Dragon Lord's Castle. I technically cannot play this one fully because there's a mechanic that does not translate to the Wii version and the mechanics that are possible in order to mod it into the game. Like, there's dragon switches where you have to pay the dragon money. And if you pay him enough money, he may not warp you to the island, but if you pay him low money, then he has more chance to warp you to the island. It's a thing. I made it on the Wii where basically they're just portals. All 4 of those spaces are just portals. That warp you to the island. And maybe that changes the way it plays, but it's still an easily playable board. Unlike these two, where the mechanics of the board are very fundamental to what it is. And I wouldn't want to play it without those mechanics, so I'm not going to. But yeah, this one still feels like it's still playable. And it's fine. It's a fine board. It's a very unique shape for a board. Nothing else really like it. I did win triple bankruptcy on this board once with Home on Island, so I don't think it was overpowered though. I mean, kind of, because you could force like 3 or like I made a home here, and like these 2 were both expensive properties, so 2 bad rolls. I don't know. It's probably fine. I would need to play the original version to actually like get a feel for this for Dragon Lord's Castle. I don't know. It exists. It's probably more interesting than the PS4 version, but I can't properly rate it. So that's my tier list, and this video's gone on for 2.5 hours, so that's fun. That's my thoughts on every single Fortune Street board release ever. Oh, there's also okay, so I said there's this one that we can't port to Wii. There's also another AU board that we know exists because there is a shot of it. I wasn't able to quickly find it in my like 2 minutes of Googling before I made this video. That they showed like a mini island that had like all 4 suits and a warp and a question mark, and like that was it or something. And that's the only part of the board we actually know. Like there's more of the board, but the screenshot doesn't show the full board. So that is a board that exists in the AU version that we don't know enough of yet to actually get a map of it imported and make it a thing. So nothing for that right now. But yeah, I love Fortune Street. Play Fortune Street. Play more than the Wii version. It's so good. There's so much Fortune Street. It's all really good. It's like my favorite game of all time. Go play Fortune Street. Go get Custom Shield World Tour on the Wii version to actually like play more boards. You can even there's even user made boards. Like I mostly play the official boards, but there's a lot of like actual modded boards made by people that are good, and I tend to like the official boards more, but there's a lot of really good ones there. I made a board based on Kanto from Pokemon, and it's surprisingly not terrible. But there's a lot of fun stuff in there. Anyway, that's my video. That's my tier list. Whoops. And there's the whole thing. Can't open a new tab. And whatever. Anyway, so that's my tier list. I probably have. I don't know if anybody else in the English community has played every board like I have, other than me and my friend that I've played every board with. So, but these are multiplayer. None of these have been single player. So yeah. I don't have anything else to say. I'm never gonna make a video like this again. Don't ask me to. I don't like making YouTube videos, but I kind of just wanted to summarize my thoughts on everything with Fortune Street and put it out there. So yeah. Bye.